An unexpected accident turns an ordinary maid into the kingdom's greatest beauty through soul transmigration. Overnight, she becomes a noble lady. The harsh young master she secretly admired gradually develops feelings for her, but surprisingly, the original body's owner isn't dead. She wants to reclaim her body. At Winfred Manor, Megan looks at the spotless windowsill and can't help but praise, saying it's worthy of Sandy Wiley, known as Sparkles. Sandy feels a bit embarrassed hearing the compliment. She laughs and says Megan is exaggerating. Suddenly, Sandy stands still and zones out again. For her, having a crush on the young master is quite profitable. Unlike other maids who spend money chasing opera actors and running to venues, she can see the young master, living in the manor anytime, earning money while admiring him. This is truly a great blessing. Seeing this, Megan complains that she's daydreaming again. She advises Sandy not to think about impossible things, but Sandy asks dreamily, "How can someone be so handsome?" Megan rolls her eyes, reminding her that the young master is not only harsh, but his private life is especially messy. Sandy argues back, saying the young master isn't a bad person. Megan finds it unbelievable. If he's not bad, then no one in the world is. And even if you can respect his private life, his severe cleanliness obsession is unbearable. But Sandy thinks the young master just loves cleanliness. Not really obsessive, he's just slightly sensitive to dirt. Sandy lowers her head. The one who truly had an obsession was her mother. Mother couldn't stand the flying dust from the quarry. She cleaned day and night. In the end, she died from heart paralysis. Recalling this, Sandy's eyes moisten. She prays there's no dust in heaven, so Mother can rest well. At this moment, Megan suddenly realizes she hasn't seen the young master in a long time. Sandy shakes her head, saying the young master hasn't returned yet. Megan complains he's out fooling around again, wondering if it's a ballet dancer or actress this time. He clearly has the kingdom's greatest beauty as his fiancée, yet still doesn't restrain himself. The Duke enters just then, angrily cursing Killian as a scoundrel. After looking around with a dark expression, he asks where Killian went. Henry stammers. Megan hurriedly answers that the young master hasn't returned since going out last night. The Duke questions him, asking if he mentioned the consequences of being late last month. Henry, frightened, quickly bows his head and apologizes. The Duke turns back angrily. He orders him to bring Killian to Claremont Estate on time. Henry remembers Sandy ran errands to that ballet dancer's house. He quickly asks her for the address. Sandy nods after reacting, saying she knows it. Henry tells her to hurry and depart. Sandy is somewhat puzzled. Sandy stumbles as she's pulled. Henry explains if Claremont gets stood up again, everyone will lose their jobs. At the ballet dancer's home, the dancer teases Killian, saying the parliamentarians don't know his other side. He smiles and pulls open the curtain, saying probably not, since he hasn't tied parliamentarians to beds. The dancer is somewhat surprised, but he raises an eyebrow, saying the light helps her see clearly. The dancer giggles and asks if he's that confident. Killian raises his eyebrow and admits it. Suddenly, there's knocking at the door. The dancer panics slightly, asking who's outside. Henry says urgently this isn't the time to block him. He must see the young master. Killian complains impatiently about the timing. He sighs helplessly and says the door is open. Henry enters with teary eyes, begging him to return. Then he instructs Sandy to pack the young master's things. Sandy carefully unties the dancer's ropes, saying goodbye to her. The dancer mutters in dissatisfaction that she doesn't need help at all. Henry pushes Killian outside, urging him to hurry. The coachman cracks his whip, heading to Claremont Estate. Sandy takes out clean clothes and hands them to Killian to change into. Killian takes them and starts changing directly. Sandy can't help but marvel inwardly that horseback riding and fencing are really effective. She quickly looks away. Looking more would be too improper. After Killian finishes adjusting, he softly says thank you to Sandy. Hearing this, Sandy freezes, her heartbeat racing. Old Count Claremont was noble in character and learned. Though his wife died young, he never had any scandals. Count Claremont never expected there would be changes. His father, over 50, suddenly married a woman under 30. Fortunately, that woman unfortunately died during childbirth. Commotion comes from outside the door. It's the troublemaker left behind by that woman, Adeline Claremont, the kingdom's greatest beauty. She rushes into the study, complaining she really hates Killian Winfred. Her nerves are fragile. Her heart is weak. She can't marry someone like him. Engaged for nearly a year, she's complained 11 times already. But this engagement was finally arranged due to deep friendship between their fathers. He slams the table and rises, sternly warning Adeline that Killian is arriving soon. Hearing this, Adeline says nothing and turns to leave. Count Claremont feels exhausted, thinking father spoiled this sister too much. The carriage moves swiftly. Henry hands Killian a bouquet of flowers. Killian looks puzzled, not understanding why Henry is giving him flowers. Henry explains they're prepared for Miss Adeline Claremont. Adeline sees Killian arrive on time. Surprised, she mocks sarcastically, asking what wind is blowing today. Killian retorts sarcastically that Miss Claremont would actually wait for him. Looking at the flowers in his hand, Adeline's face shows disgust. She bluntly says the flowers are too crude. Killian smoothly hands her the flowers, sarcastically saying they match her well. Adeline sneers, saying the rumors about his transcendent taste are apparently false. These flowers look like they were randomly picked from the roadside, utterly vulgar. She casually gives the flowers to Sandy. She turns and leaves directly, not bothering to look at Killian again. Killian hesitates for a moment but still follows. Henry soothingly tells Sandy to return to the manor first, saying she worked hard. Sandy holds the flowers and reflects that she didn't understand before why the young master dislikes the kingdom's greatest beauty. Now she finally understands. She needs to reflect. Looking at the flowers flowers in her hand, she feels quite upset. These flowers are beautiful. These were carefully selected by her. Even though she just ran the errand, it felt worthwhile. Sandy consoles herself. Either way, the flowers pass through the young master's hands, so it counts as indirectly giving them to her. Thinking that the young master called her name and smiled at her, she's so happy she thinks she'll be sleepless tonight. Her heart aches bitterly. This feeling belongs only to her, and she alone will lose sleep. Adeline mocks Killian for daring to see her right after coming from a vulgar woman. Killian doesn't avoid it at all, directly stating he just came from there. Adeline frowns, saying this joke is too vulgar, but Killian says nonchalantly it's not a joke. Adeline questions how he dares to see her right after fooling around. Killian raises an eyebrow, saying that to come see her, he temporarily tied that woman to the bed. Adeline can't believe this nonsense might actually be true. How can such a person be qualified as a prime minister candidate? But Killian doesn't care. He points to his head, then points down below. He tells Adeline that romantic affairs and serious matters are two different things. Hearing this, Adeline's face flushes red. She can't help but ring the bell to call the housemaid. The maid approaches and asks what she needs. Killian is used to this. Understanding she's going to put on an act with him again today, the maid repeats, confirming whether she needs lemonade and if it should contain alcohol. Watching them bustle around, Killian grumbles inwardly. He originally thought beauty meant kindness. Now he's utterly annoyed by Adeline. Killian sneers coldly. If he'd known, he should have severed ties with grandfather and fled to a neighboring country. Seeing Killian can still smile, Adeline angrily questions how he can bear to make her suffer. Since he doesn't love her, they might as well break the engagement. Killian suddenly stands up, sneering coldly that if he could, he would have broken it last autumn. Seeing Killian approach, Adeline feels both scared and panicked, nervously asking what he's going to do. Killian warns Adeline that before marriage she'd better learn to be a composed lady. Otherwise, on their wedding night, she'll be stripped and have her mouth gagged. Both scared and angry, Adeline loses control and shouts that Killian is a madman. Marrying such a man, she'd rather be dead. Today is the anniversary of Sandy's mother's death. Taking a 3-hour train from Reawakened, she can reach the small town of Carton where father lives. As soon as she exits the station, she loudly calls out for father. Besides the famous marble quarry, Carton has only simplicity and quiet. In her hometown, everyone treated her as an outsider. The Wiley family's only daughter, the strange Sandy, such words often echoed in her ears. Simply because she was the only girl in the village who studied, Sandy asks father pitifully if she's really that strange. But father gently tells her there's nothing wrong with being strange. Hearing this, Sandy makes up her mind to fully be herself. She didn't marry according to worldly expectations. At 15, she went to Reawakened to be a maid, and criticism increased. Sandy smiles and tells father she met Miss Adeline. Father immediately asks how she was. She says Adeline is as beautiful as the rumors, making her feel ashamed of her appearance. The quarry owner, Count Claremont's younger daughter, and the quarry worker's daughter were born on the same day. After hearing this, mother insisted on giving her the same name. She naively thought this way her daughter might live more nobly. But in the end, though she was called Adeline, she didn't become noble, only gained more ridicule. Over time, everyone just called her by her nickname Sandy. But father argues with Sandy that in his eyes, Adeline Wiley is the most beautiful. Sandy smiles helplessly, knowing perhaps only father thinks this way, but that's enough. Father changes the subject and starts urging marriage. There are many good young men in Reawakened. How is she still single? Sandy feels somewhat helpless. Here you go again. She firmly tells father she'll only marry after becoming head maid at Chamberlain Manor. Father worries about what to do when she gets older. Sandy answers she'll just live well alone. He can only remind her to take care of herself. Sandy smiles and agrees. Father's tone is heavy, telling her she must stay healthy and not leave like mother. Sandy solemnly promises she'll definitely stay healthy and absolutely won't leave this world before father. They'll live happily together for a long, long time. Before parting, Sandy reminds father again to take care of his health. Father nods and also tells Sandy to take care of herself and not worry him. On the other side, Henry informs Killian that after the joint session of Parliament, there is a banquet at Glenville Manor. Killian prepares to depart, telling grandfather he's heading to the banquet venue first. Grandfather asks Killian if he's still going to vote against him today. Killian speaks frankly. At home, he's a grandson. In Parliament, he's a political rival. Grandfather scolds him for being heartless, questioning why he must break tradition and insist on the Reform Party. Killian explains again that the Conservative Party's doctrine of extorting even children is too despicable. Grandfather falls silent for a moment. He actually agrees with that bill from the bottom of his heart. That bill prohibits children under 13 from low-wage labor and establishes public schools. The bill passed by one vote precisely because Killian voted in favor. After speaking, Killian bids grandfather farewell, saying they'll see each other in Parliament. The Winfred family has always been able to change the kingdom's history. Killian Winfred might be the same. If Killian's convictions are righteous, becoming Senate Speaker wouldn't be bad. Adeline pushes the door open and bursts in, telling her brother she really doesn't want to go to Chamberlain Manor. But brother argues back that they've already replied they'll attend the banquet. Adeline makes excuses, saying it looks like rain and she wants to cancel the trip. Brother asks back if Duke Winfred would let her dine in the wind and rain. Adeline Adeline wants to say something more, but brother seriously reminds her that father who unconditionally indulged her is gone, telling her not to be willful. Killian is the last gift father left her. She should act accordingly. If she misses this marriage, he won't tolerate her anymore either. He instructs the servants to dress Adeline with all their effort today. The only thing she has to offer is her beauty. She must seize the opportunity no matter what. Adeline can't help but cry out that all of this is too hateful, too terrible. The servant advises her to look on the bright side. After all, many socialites want to say even one word to Killian, but Adeline excitedly argues back, saying Killian is despicable for wanting to strip her on their wedding night. The servant doesn't understand. Isn't this what all men do on the wedding night? Adeline wonders, asking if stripping and then gagging her mouth is also normal. The servant freezes, admitting such taste is indeed quite unusual and extreme. Adeline immediately agrees, emphasizing that Killian is a terrifying man. She thinks of father. Why did father have to leave her behind? If she can't meet someone who loves her like father did, she'd rather be dead. Hearing this, the maid feels sorry for her and advises her not to talk nonsense. She looks at the sky, even having the absurd thought that a lightning bolt could strike down from heaven. A sudden flash makes Sandy wonder if that was lightning just now. Someone doesn't understand. Although this is a routine autumn activity, the weather is too bad for mushroom hunting. Someone else asks back, isn't there a banquet today? So they need to hurry and find the truffle mushrooms the young master likes. But Sandy doesn't stop. Seeing traces in the soil, her eyes light up. She thinks smugly that she'll dig up all the little mushrooms the young master likes in a moment. Someone sees Sandy on duty and asks puzzled if she's on duty today. Sandy explains she switched shifts with Megan. The other person is very surprised. This is a rare day off. Sandy explains that Megan covered for her on Mother's death anniversary, so now she should return the favor. Suddenly, the dog pulls hard on the leash. Sandy asks with concern if everything's all right. The other person says aggrievedly that the dog won't listen and she sprained her ankle. Sandy offers to help hold the leash. The other person hesitates. Sandy smiles and comforts her, saying she's not tired. The rain falls harder. Someone loudly suggests everyone should evacuate quickly. Sandy sighs that the weather is really too difficult. She needs to go back and eat cake too. Suddenly, the dog breaks free violently. Sandy screams in shock. She urgently shouts for the dog to stop, but the dog won't obey, only focused on digging under the tree. Sandy, exhausted and panting, calls the dog to come back and behave. The weather is bad, the dog is troublesome. She must eat 3 pieces of cake to calm down. At this moment, a blinding lightning bolt suddenly strikes down. With a loud crack, it lands in front of Sandy. Sandy is startled by the thunder. The next second, the dog runs off again. Sandy is about to step forward when her foot slips. Her body falls uncontrollably. She only has time to let out a short cry. On the other side, Adeline cries out in the carriage, frightened by the thunder. The maid hears this and hurriedly asks with concern what's wrong. Adeline's face darkens as she mutters she really shouldn't have come. She extends her hand, telling the maid to hurry and massage her. As soon as she finishes speaking, the carriage suddenly lurches violently, nearly overturning. The horses pulling the carriage are also startled, neighing. The inside of the carriage shakes violently due to this incident. A lightning bolt precisely strikes Adeline's carriage. Sandy opens her eyes and is surprised to find she's turned into a mushroom. She feels her body rolling but doesn't know where it will roll to. Finally, she stops. Through the blur, Sandy sees Killian and excitedly recognizes that's the young master. She circles around Killian, loudly calling for the young master, repeatedly saying she's Sandy. Opening her eyes again, the maid sees her awake and joyfully shouts that she's finally conscious. Sandy wonders in confusion why this isn't the dormitory and how she got here. The maid hurriedly stops her from moving. The maid says she's been unconscious for 5 days and moving carelessly is dangerous. Sandy wonders, these aren't Chamberlain's maid uniforms. Another maid steps forward to help her slowly sit up. Sandy discovers these hands are so fair and delicate, as if they've never touched water. She can't help but exclaim, this is truly incredible. Seeing her dazed, the maid asks worriedly if she's uncomfortable somewhere. Sandy looks in the mirror and sees Adeline's face. She still can't believe it. This is too incredible. Killian is in the mansion, feeling something is strangely off. He stands up and calls to Megan. He asks her what she thinks of the mantelpiece over there. Megan looks carefully and says the mantelpiece seems a bit dirty. Killian nods in agreement, then continues asking what she thinks of the other side. The servant looks at the other side and says helplessly that things don't seem to be in their original positions. Killian says thoughtfully, so that's how it is. What should be done? The servant hurriedly answers that it should be tidied up. At this moment, Henry suddenly comes over, calling Killian to wait a moment. His Grace the Duke instructed him to visit Miss Adeline. She encountered a major accident and should be visited. Killian unexpectedly agrees, saying they'll depart in 30 minutes. Henry is surprised he's so compliant today. Killian ignores him and asks how the matter he instructed before is going. Henry reacts, asking if it's about the maid Sandy. He sighs that while such an accident is regrettable, she's just a maid. There's no need to care. He also suggests it's better to quietly cover this matter up as much as possible. Killian turns around and seriously asks Henry who he is. Henry hurriedly answers he's his young master, the Winfred family heir, and also a member of Parliament of the Alistair Kingdom. Killian says coldly that since he knows, he shouldn't ask. He emphasizes he's a politician. This accident occurred on their family's territory. As a politician, he must be responsible for it. Bearing the Winfred name, he should have such responsibility. Henry quickly agrees, saying he'll act according to Killian's instructions. Sandy speaks rapidly, wanting Count Claremont to listen to her explanation. She incoherently defends herself, saying she's not really herself right now. The Count is stunned, asking if she's been in this state all along. The maid nods, saying the young lady looks like she suffered severe head trauma. The Count frowns and asks what the attending physician says about this. The maid relays that the doctor says the young lady has no external injuries. It may be temporary mental confusion from the accident. Sandy pleads with the Count again. Even if he doesn't believe her, please let her go back. Only by returning to Chamberlain Manor can everything return to normal. But the Count sneers coldly, mocking that seeing hysteria and fainting don't work, so she changed tactics. Sandy hurriedly denies it. She's really not Adeline. She became like this as soon as she woke up. The Count sighs helplessly. The maid reports that Chamberlain says Sir Killian Winfred wants to come visit and check on her condition. He's shocked and asks if he's coming right now. If Killian sees Adeline like this, he'll definitely propose breaking the engagement. Sandy seizes the opportunity to say again she's a Chamberlain maid and asks to be let go back. The Count is annoyed and sternly scolds, telling Adeline to shut up immediately. He complains about Adeline's constant strange behavior. This excuse is quite novel. Could she be possessed by a dead maid? Hearing dead maid, Sandy instantly freezes. She asks the Count tremblingly who the dead maid he just mentioned is. The Count mocks that she's going to fake illness and faint again. He was overthinking. She's definitely that troublemaker, Adeline. Sandy shouts emotionally that she's not dead. Why does the Count say the maid is dead? The Count's patience is exhausted. He orders the maid to give her sleeping medicine and to brush it off, saying she didn't recover. Sandy desperately shouts that she's not dead and wants to return to Chamberlain to find her real self. The maid comes over with medicine, gently reminding her it's time to take it. Sandy knows clearly that taking this medicine will make her sleep heavily like the previous days. She struggles and runs away. The maid panics and chases after her. Sandy silently chants to herself that she needs to tell everyone Sandy Wiley is still alive. Just then, the Winfred family carriage comes speeding ahead. Hearing the commotion, Henry wonders what all the noise is about. He looks out and is instantly stunned, telling the young master something big happened and to look outside. Killian doesn't understand what he's saying. He looks out and sees Adeline running toward him. Killian is shocked, curious about what's going on. Before he can react, Adeline passes right by him. The next moment, she stumbles. Everyone sees Adeline suddenly fall headfirst to the ground. Before long, Henry exclaims excitedly that she actually stood up. She staggers forward and continues running. Killian sees something's wrong and rushes forward. Henry is very surprised. He hurries forward, wanting to grab Adeline. Adeline turns back with an expression she's never had before. Killian is somewhat surprised and is about to say something, but she collapses again. After regaining consciousness, Sandy can't help but complain that the noble lady's body is as fragile as a porcelain doll. Running for just this short while, she almost had heart failure. The maid sees Sandy awake and hurries forward with concern. Sandy responds perfunctorily, but inside she's thinking only by becoming Adeline can she escape. Sandy tries hard to recall what Adeline was like when she came with the young master. Suddenly, she complains impatiently that everything's so annoying. Sandy imitates Adeline's tone, saying everything is hateful and so annoying. Seeing this, the maid is overjoyed, relieved she's finally back to normal. Sandy breathes a sigh of relief. They shouldn't give her sleeping medicine anymore, right? Suddenly, the maid asks again if she's all right. Sandy is caught off guard, wondering what she did wrong. She reminds Sandy this is already the second bowl. Won't her stomach hurt? Sandy quickly makes an excuse, saying it's because she's been hungry for days. She can't eat anymore now, though she's reluctant inside and originally wanted another bowl. Seeing this, the maid immediately smiles with satisfaction. Sandy's heart bleeds. So noble ladies all have bird-like appetites. She unconsciously arranges the tableware. The maid calls out softly with confusion, "Miss?" Sandy panics. Maybe she should mess things up again to cover it up. Can't worry about that much. Sandy falls down, pretending to faint. The maid exclaims that the young lady must have eaten too much and upset her stomach. After going through all this, Sandy finally understands. If she's afraid of making a mistake in the future, fainting first is definitely right. Duke Winfred is full of worry, asking about Adeline's condition. Killian, afraid grandfather will worry, only says Adeline is fine with no serious external injuries. He calculates inwardly that he absolutely can't mention what happened the day he visited, to avoid making grandfather anxious. Duke Winfred suddenly brings up whether he sent consolation money to the family of the maid who died in the accident. Killian nods. She was honest and capable, fulfilling some responsibility as proper. Duke Winfred is very gratified, praising that he's truly grown up. Killian modestly says, as a politician, it's all proper. After all, Sandy was the only maid who tolerated his pickiness and cleaned his room long-term. Duke Winfred changes the subject, asking why the Reform Party opposes the budget proposal. Killian explains there's far too much unnecessary spending in the budget. Duke Winfred is dissatisfied, pressing on where exactly it's unnecessary. Killian says helplessly that explaining everything one by one would take until lunch, but Duke Winfred's attitude is firm that he wants to hear it. A servant comes forward to report that bathwater has been prepared for Adeline. Sandy is about to refuse when she's pulled into the bathroom. Then they apply various skincare products all over Sandy. After the servants finish tending to her, they softly say goodbye, telling Sandy to rest well. Sandy breathes a long sigh of relief. Finally, she's alone. Being waited on isn't easy either, but now isn't the time to zone out. She needs to act quickly. She rummages through the wardrobe and discovers the most modest clothing is just a cloak. Sandy makes up her mind. She must find the real Sandy Wiley as soon as possible. She wants to change back to herself. The money box is full of gold coins. Sandy can't find a single $10 coin. Helpless, she has to borrow $50 for emergency use. Sandy doesn't dare delay and hurries running outside. Henry says helplessly that Sir Wesley is late again today. Killian responds with dissatisfaction in his voice. Suddenly, he points in surprise to the distance, saying he sees Miss Claremont. Killian immediately argues it's impossible. Claremont has always been a porcelain doll who stays in the mansion. Henry's tone is certain. He absolutely didn't see wrong. Killian helplessly looks in that direction. It really is her. Henry wonders where Miss Claremont is going without attendance. Should the young master follow and see? Killian hesitates, then suddenly hears someone calling him. Sir Wesley apologizes, saying he came late. Killian coldly warns Wesley that if he's late next time, he'll leave first. Sir Wesley is somewhat displeased that he wasn't that late, sarcastically mocking Killian for being harsh. Killian looks toward Adeline, again, but she's already disappeared. He has to give up. At the quarry village, villagers are all discussing Maddie Wiley's misfortune. Sandy fell off a cliff picking mushrooms and landed on a noble's carriage. Losing his wife, and now his daughter, he's truly too unfortunate. Someone says with prejudice that teaching a daughter to read was wishful thinking. Sandy should have honestly gotten married, not dreamed of being a maid. The supervisor finds Maddie, expressing regret about his daughter. This is difficult for him. He can only help this much, but he must come to work tomorrow. Maddie walks in a daze, each step as heavy as if filled with lead. Sandy sees father from afar and can't help calling out dad in her heart. Maddie kneels before Sandy's grave, choking as he calls his daughter's name. He beats his chest and stamps his feet, blaming himself for not giving clever and kind Sandy a good life. He says sorry over and over. It's his own incompetence. Sandy stands not far away, her heart hurting as if pricked by needles. She wants to rush up and tell father she's still alive, but the words stop at her lips. After father leaves, she looks at her own grave, feeling everything is absurd. She slumps to the ground, her heart full of disbelief. She's clearly still alive. Sandy stands at the doorstep, wanting to tell father she's Sandy and still alive, but thinking of her current appearance, she feels conflicted and pained. She ultimately gives up. She can't add more pain and confusion to father. Killian watches Sandy at the station, full of curiosity. This woman is really strange, the coachman asks, puzzled why they're stopping. Killian points ahead, instructing the coachman to bring Miss Claremont over there. The coachman looks blank, asking where Miss Claremont is. Killian says it's that woman on the carriage platform. The coachman looks in the direction Killian points and spots Sandy in the black cloak. The coachman respectfully approaches and speaks softly. He asks Sandy to come with him, saying the young master is waiting for her. Sandy mutters inwardly. Refusing the fiancé's invitation would definitely arouse suspicion. After hesitating for a while, she finally chooses to get in the carriage. Killian observes Sandy, his tone probing, saying she looks like she's been running around all day. Sandy hastily explains she went to a friend's house, but unconsciously calls out young master as the words leave her mouth. Killian is stunned hearing young master, raising an eyebrow, not understanding why she'd call him that. Sandy instantly panics and quickly corrects herself, changing the address to Sir Winfred. Killian sees her dusty and hurried appearance, her hand tightly clutching a few copper coins. He can't help but feel a headache. He thought her injuries weren't serious before. Could there be something wrong with her brain? On second thought, he feels Adeline wasn't normal to begin with. It's safer to send her back to the mansion first. As the words fall, the carriage is unusually quiet. Killian feels somewhat uncomfortable and asks sarcastically if she's going to be a composed lady. Sandy answers affirmatively that's natural. Killian chuckles lightly, saying that's fortunate, and reminds her not to waver in her determination. He deliberately says, only this way can she avoid the tragedy of being gagged on the wedding night, wanting to see her reaction. Hearing this, Sandy's face instantly flushes red, looking at Killian with surprise. This abnormal reaction makes Killian more confused. Why isn't she having a fit? Could her body really not have recovered yet? The carriage stops in front of the mansion. The coachman opens the door saying they've arrived. Sandy hurriedly thanks him, eager to get off and say goodbye. Killian suddenly stops her. He points to her hand, smiling and asking, shouldn't this be given to him? Sandy freezes, wondering inwardly if riding her fiancé's carriage also requires payment. Is the noble family too petty, or is Adeline and Killian's relationship not close enough? Sandy doesn't think much more. She figures she'll pay first. Public carriage fare is $2. Seeing her actually take out coins, Killian is instantly astonished and unconsciously takes them. Seeing his expression isn't good, Sandy realizes the Winfred Mansion's carriage couldn't be the same price as an overcrowded public bus. Sandy takes out one more dollar. Looking at the $3 in his hand, Killian freezes in place. Seeing this, Sandy thinks she got it right this time and silently notes the fare is $3. Sandy carefully asks if she can go in now. Killian waves his hand casually, telling her to go ahead. Sandy hurriedly thanks him. When saying goodbye, she almost calls him young master but hastily changes it to Sir Winfred. She keeps giving herself mental hints that she must walk with elegant steps and not reveal herself. Killian watches her gait and can't help but snicker. How does this gait look like a plump pigeon? So awkward. But then again, this usually spoiled fiancé of his seems quite interesting. At night, Sandy has just fallen asleep when she hears someone shouting for her to return the body. The first time, time, Sandy thought it was an auditory hallucination or nightmare. After all, she's an uninvited guest occupying someone else's body. Suddenly, Adeline's soul appears, angrily denouncing that a lowly maid dares to occupy her body. She curses and rages, saying this behavior is too shameless and unbearable. Trembling with anger, Adeline repeatedly shouts to return her body, her voice full of anger and urgency. She lunges directly at Sandy, angrily wanting to beat her and drive her out of the body. Unexpectedly, as her hands swing around, her soul passes right through Sandy's body, unable to touch anything physical. Sandy is somewhat surprised. How is Miss Adeline transparent? Both angry and anxious, Adeline points at Sandy and scolds her. It's all this maid's fault. Sandy suddenly thinks of something and asks in horror if she's a ghost. Adeline chases Sandy relentlessly, shouting to return the body while calling her a lowly maid. She lunges at Sandy again, but still passes through Sandy's body. Adeline sternly commands Sandy to get out of her body quickly, otherwise she can't return at all. Sandy asks Adeline in confusion how she should return it. Adeline roars impatiently that she doesn't know either. Sandy asks helplessly again, where should she go without a body? Adeline says disdainfully that she's dead, isn't she? Her words carry resentment. Sandy hurriedly argues back, saying she's still alive. Adeline completely loses patience and scolds Sandy as a thief. A mere maid dares to steal her body. She runs, she chases. A person and a ghost run in circles around the bedroom. Sandy, tired from running, plops down on the ground and can't help exclaiming this is killing her. Adeline suddenly notices some injury and angrily asks Sandy what she did to her body. Sandy hastily explains that this injury was from falling while escaping from the mansion. Adeline is furious, angrily denouncing that Sandy dares to not cherish her body like this. As usual, she shouts loudly for the maid to massage her injury, her tone full of forceful commands. Sandy hurries forward clumsily to massage her hand. After a moment, she apologizes helplessly that she really can't reach it. Adeline complains irritably that nothing goes her way, her heart full of dislike and dissatisfaction. She points at Sandy and sternly warns that if she dares misuse her body, she won't let it go. As soon as the words fall, Adeline's soul suddenly disappears before Sandy. Someone at the quarry cries out that something terrible has happened. They say Maddie Wiley is stealing marble. The foreman hears this and is shocked. He walks up to Wiley and sternly demands to know what he's doing. Wiley stops and says he's no longer a quarry worker, so he's taking the stone as payment for 25 years of wages. The foreman is both angry and anxious, and can't help questioning whether Wiley has lost his mind. Wiley responds angrily, saying he's made the master so much money, yet they won't even spare him one broken stone. The foreman is momentarily speechless. A coworker steps forward and asks if they should drag Wiley back. He waves his hand dismissively. Wiley probably went mad because his daughter died. Just let him take the stone and be rid of him. On the other side, Sandy hears about going to the royal palace ball and hurriedly begs her brother, saying she doesn't want to go. The count says she looks completely recovered now, but Sandy insists she isn't qualified to attend. The count's face darkens. He questions her, saying didn't she love playing queen in high society the most? Sandy tries to continue pleading with the count to hear her explanation, but he cuts her off and tells her to be ready before Killian arrives. Sandy is at a loss. Does she have to pretend to faint again to escape? The count seems to see through her thoughts and warns her not to even think about pretending to faint and making a scene. If she pretends to faint, he'll just throw her onto Killian's carriage. In the end, she's still dressed up and placed in Killian's carriage headed to the ball. She can't help sneaking glances at Killian, thinking to herself that he looks even more handsome today. Noticing her gaze, Killian asks if she has something to say. Sandy quickly shakes her head in denial, repeatedly saying she has nothing to say. This doesn't put Killian at ease. His eyes stare straight ahead at her. Killian sees her face is completely flushed and asks in confusion if she has a fever or feels unwell. Sandy denies it again. Killian guesses again, asking if the carriage is too stuffy and making her uncomfortable. Sandy still shakes her head. At this point, Killian suddenly shows a mischievous smile and asks if she's suddenly fallen for him. Sandy panics inside, terrified her secret will be discovered. Miss Adeline really hates Killian. But Killian continues teasing, saying they're engaged, so it's normal to have feelings. He even says if she wishes, he'd be more than happy to take things further. Sandy quickly closes her eyes. If she can't see him, things won't be so troublesome. She urges herself to think about other things, like the new brightening polish, to distract herself. Killian watches her unusual reaction, full of confusion. In the past, when this kind of thing happened, Adeline would have exploded in rage. Could it be the after effects from the previous accident haven't fully healed? Soon, the two arrive at the palace. With the announcement, Killian and Adeline arrive together. Sandy is so nervous her hands keep trembling. What makes it even more embarrassing is that she can't stop hiccuping. Killian is somewhat speechless and asks in confusion what on earth is wrong with her now. Sandy's body instantly tenses up. She says His Majesty the King and Her Majesty the Queen are right ahead. Killian replies helplessly that this is obvious. After all, this is the palace. Sandy asks him helplessly what she should do now. Killian is puzzled and asks back, isn't the social scene the only place where she can hold her ground? Seeing she's really off, he still reminds her they're almost before the king and tells her to hold her breath first. Before the king, Killian bows slightly in greeting. Whispers immediately start around them. Sandy is seen bowing stiffly at a 90-degree angle, her body trembling slightly. The queen sees this and politely says there's no need for such a grand bow. Seeing this, Killian reaches out to help her up and pulls her aside. Sandy asks quietly if she can breathe breathe now," Killian says in exasperation. Whatever. At this moment, Adeline's friends see her and walk over enthusiastically calling her name. They say with concern that everyone was worried about her, asking if she's recovered now, as her complexion doesn't look too good. Another friend turns to look at Killian and praises his good looks, saying she's so lucky to have such a handsome fiancé. Killian tactfully leaves, letting Sandy have fun with her friends. Hearing he's leaving, Sandy hurriedly grabs him. She quietly asks him not to leave, her tone pleading. She begs Killian not to leave her alone. Killian freezes at her words. Her friends notice her unusual behavior and ask in confusion if she's really okay. They ask worriedly if something still hurts, saying she feels different from usual. Hearing this, Killian looks at her friends and speaks up to help her out, saying he really has no choice. He might have to monopolize his fiancée today, and they can chat next time. Seeing this, Adeline's friends can't help sighing that Sir Winfred has changed and is completely captivated by Adeline. They envy how considerate and gentle Killian is, making them want to find their own fiancés quickly. Killian is quite pleased and politely takes his leave from them. He hands her a drink, telling Sandy to wet her throat first to ease her nerves. Sandy thanks him softly and takes a sip. When she realizes it's alcohol, she instinctively rejects it and spits it out. She coughs repeatedly, choked by the alcohol. Sandy looks at the alcohol stains on Killian's shoes and instantly panics, not knowing what to do. She lifts her skirt hem to wipe his shoes, apologizing to Killian over and over. Finally managing to wipe the alcohol off his shoes, Sandy breathes a sigh of relief. The two suddenly freeze, and the atmosphere becomes somewhat delicate. Killian stares straight at her as if trying to see through her. Sandy's heart pounds nervously, silently wondering if fainting now could end this. Suddenly her chin is grabbed. She looks up and asks in confusion what he's doing. Killian doesn't answer but instead asks what she's scheming. He calls out Adeline Claremont's name, his tone serious. Sandy stammers, wanting to say "I'm Sandy" but can't get the words out. Suddenly, elegant dance music comes from inside. Killian composes himself and tells her to follow him in. Sandy looks blank and asks in confusion where they're going. When she realizes they're going to dance, Sandy instantly panics. She keeps waving her hands, saying no 3 times in a row, her attitude firm. She remembers her father's words, "If you ever have someone you care for, never dance with him before marriage." Sandy knows clearly that if her dancing wasn't so terrible, her father wouldn't have said this. But now she has to dance with Killian in the palace, and she panics even more. Killian warns impatiently in a cold voice that his patience has reached its limit. He tells her to act like she normally does. He's not in the mood to watch her new performance now. Adeline is called the Blue Butterfly in Riverton society. She wore a blue dress when she first debuted. The way she danced was as elegant and beautiful as a butterfly. From that day on, Adeline held firm as the queen of society. At least before this dance began today, her status had never wavered. Killian watches her dancing, full of confusion. What is the meaning of this? She steps on Killian's foot yet again. Killian frowns and demands to know what exactly she's trying to do. Sandy apologizes with reddened eyes, saying she really didn't mean to. But the next second, his foot is stepped on again. Killian warns her through gritted teeth not to mess around. Sandy explains with tears and grievance that she really didn't mean to. She doesn't want it to be like this, but she can't control it. Killian mutters to himself, thinking she doesn't seem to be acting. But if she's not putting on a show, this is too outrageous. Getting his foot stepped on once more, Killian can't take it anymore. This dancing is truly terrible. To intentionally dance this badly in this setting isn't easy either. They need to end this quickly to avoid becoming a laughingstock. Sandy asks frantically what to do. Killian tells her to use her special talent. Isn't she very good at pretending to faint at the drop of a hat? Sandy is surprised. Pretend to faint in a place like the palace? Killian scoffs that she's never been picky about when or where to faint before. Compared to displaying terrible dancing, fainting is better. Sandy thinks about it and feels Killian has a point. They agree to say publicly it's accident after effects and she lacks strength. Sandy asks nervously if she should faint now. Killian's tone carries a threat. If she steps on his foot again, he won't be polite. He tells her to faint now. Seeing she's fainted, Killian scoops Sandy up. The guests see this and discuss among themselves. They say it must be that she's unwell. Someone agrees, saying they felt Adeline seemed off earlier. Others are envious, saying Sir Winfred carrying his fiancée is so romantic. At a safe place, Killian tells Sandy she can open her eyes now. He teases Sandy, calling her Miss Caterpillar, and asks what kind of dance that was. Sandy doesn't catch on and asks in confusion what caterpillar. Killian asks back, hasn't she seen a caterpillar? Sandy nods. Of course she has. Killian asks again, has she seen a caterpillar struggling on its back? Sandy continues nodding. Killian teases that her dancing in the hall just now was just like that. Sandy's face immediately turns red. She knows clearly that when it comes to dancing, she can't refute anything anyone says. But thinking about it another way, she's actually quite happy inside, because she can see him smiling so brightly. Thinking back to the past, when Sandy had been working at Chamberlain for a month, Megan asked her curiously if cleaning was really that interesting. Sandy affirmed that there aren't many things in this world she can do as she pleases, but with cleaning, as long as she puts in effort, there's a sense of accomplishment. Her eyes sparkle as she says as long as she holds a broom and rag, she's the queen of the dust kingdom. Megan is amused and finds her too interesting, but Sandy is completely serious. Megan cooperates by bowing and says with a smile, Your Majesty, this is the Queen's Hall. Sandy immediately gets into character and responds solemnly, Indeed. Megan asks how she should deal with those rebellious dust particles. Sandy commands to eliminate them all. As soon as the words fall, laughter spreads through the room. Sandy and Megan are both shocked. There's someone else in the room. Looking closely, it's actually Killian. He stands up with a smile and walks toward the two. He plays along with Sandy, smiling and wishing her victory in her battle against Dust. Although she felt especially embarrassed afterward, Sandy still thought it was a very happy day, because that day, she saw his exceptionally bright smile. Just like today, Killian looks at the dazed Sandy and teases that it's a bit late to feel embarrassed now, isn't it? Sandy quickly denies it, saying she's not embarrassed, but Killian is certain she is. Seeing her refuse to admit it, he tells her to lift her head and look at him. Seeing she's still about to refuse, Killian directly reaches out and lifts her head. Sandy panics. Whenever she sees him, she smiles like she's dazed. She thinks frantically, this is so embarrassing. She really wants to find a hole to hide in. She argues to herself that she doesn't really want to run away. But Killian suddenly calls her seriously. Miss Claremont, that dance didn't look like acting. Could it be because of the previous accident that her memory really has problems? She stammers that it's not that she doesn't remember everything, just some parts are fragmented. As she speaks, Sandy becomes increasingly shy. Killian continues questioning, like dancing and such? Sandy hurriedly explains, telling him not to misunderstand. Only a small part of her memory is unclear, and it will recover after some time. Then she imitates Adeline's tone and challenges Killian, asking if he thinks she's strange. She also pretends to be angry, and says if he thinks she's strange, she'll be unhappy. But Killian unconcernedly tells her not to worry too much. He hasn't just found her strange today. She's been strange ever since he first met her. But Sandy's next words surprise him. She says, being strange isn't necessarily a bad thing, is it? He considers this. Compared to being proper but boring, being strange and interesting is better. This is the only reason he hasn't broken off the engagement. Sandy feels a bit guilty and asks if he's joking. Killian only says, well, that leaves you wondering. The carriage soon arrives at Claremont Estate. Sandy turns to politely take her leave. Just as she turns, Sandy remembers something and hurriedly calls out, Sir Winfred. She apologizes embarrassedly, saying she almost forgot to give him the carriage fare. Killian freezes and asks if this is round-trip fare. Sandy nods in confirmation. Did she calculate it wrong? Killian accepts it with a smile, saying it's exactly right. She says sincerely that today's events troubled him, and thanks to him, she had a very pleasant time. Killian says meaningfully that thanks to her excellent dancing, he also had a very pleasant evening. Sandy freezes. She once thought that smile bloomed only for her and couldn't sleep because of it. But now she understands he's the same to everyone, whether it's the puppy Logan or the lowly maid Sandy. But Sandy is actually happier because he treats even lowly maids equally. Even if this smile isn't genuine, she still finds it precious. This evening passed like an unreal dream. Sandy still feels dazed. She can't help thinking, could this be a gift from heaven to the unlucky mushroom-picking maid who died? Now she's satisfied and can calmly return the body. She's seen her distant father and been his fiancé. Though brief, it was complete. Sandy calls out in her heart, come quickly, miss. Come take back your body. But it's been half a month, and Miss Adeline still hasn't appeared. Sandy is confused and anxious. Where exactly has Miss gone? Every day when she wakes from dreams, she's still in Miss Adeline's appearance. Sandy takes a deep breath, trying to calm her emotions. She longs for inner peace. She silently judges that Adeline probably won't appear today either. The maids won't come in to wake Miss in the morning. Sandy bends down and takes out a box from under the bed. She looks fondly at the cleaning kit she worked so hard to collect. Then she dusts here, wipes there. After cleaning, Sandy lets out a long breath, feeling thoroughly refreshed all over. Although she's neither the dead maid nor the real Miss. After doing this, she can clearly feel she's still truly alive. She encourages herself inwardly to keep trying hard today too. At the Winfred household, Henry is very shocked to see Killian. Today is the day to visit Count Claremont's household. Why is he staying home so obediently? Seeing this, Killian asks with a smile if he's sorry there's no hide-and-seek to play. Henry doesn't understand. What about that pretty ballet dancer? Killian's attitude is indifferent. They were never in it for the long term anyway. He urges Henry to depart quickly. Henry further confirms whether they're really going to Count Claremont's household. Killian replies, of course. Henry sighs that he's finally noticed Miss Claremont's beauty. Killian laughs lightly, finding Claremont quite interesting. However interesting he finds her now is how much he disliked her before. Since that accident, he's not as repulsed by her. He wants to confirm if she's just being fickle temporarily or has truly become interesting. Count Claremont feels strange. Usually Adeline would have rushed in by now. The Countess hears she's obediently preparing for the visit. Perhaps due to accident after effects, she's become so quiet. If only she could be like this forever. This would also benefit Killian, and Father would be glad he found a good marriage prospect. The Count thinks of how Father's absurd remarriage damaged the entire family's reputation, but fortunately he recovered his senses in the end. Take the quarry, for example. He spent too much on unnecessary labor costs, being too gentle and lacking a sense of reality. Even if you press wages to the minimum, there will still be paupers willing to work. Just fire those who are dissatisfied. The Countess worries about Killian joining the Reform Party. He might not protect the Claremont family's interests. He reassures his wife that Killian is just an immature fool who doesn't understand worldly matters. This hot-bloodedness is only temporary. As heir to a top family, Killian won't destroy his own foundation to change the world. Once Killian tires of playing hero, he'll naturally settle down. They just need to marry Adeline off to him. A maid hurriedly reminds Sandy to quickly open her parasol. Sandy feels somewhat dejected. Autumn sunlight light is so mood-lifting. The maid quickly brings a shawl and drapes it on her. Sandy is helpless. It'll be quite a while before the weather turns cool. She's unbearably hot and silently complains that Adeline is far too delicate. Seeing Killian approaching, Sandy feels delighted. The carriage stops before her. Sandy looks at Killian and involuntarily blushes. Even if the world turns upside down, he remains dazzlingly radiant. Killian notices Sandy's direct stare. Last time she only squinted and peeked, but now she's become blatant. At the tea table, Killian wonders, were her eyes always this clear? In the past, he felt he'd be willing to sell his soul to a demon just to make this woman shut up. But now she can actually drink afternoon tea so quietly. Sandy discovers Killian's smile today and feels very satisfied inside. Killian curiously teases that she seems in good spirits today. Sandy is very surprised and quickly denies it. She quickly reminds herself inwardly not to act smitten. Killian says with relief that she's finally learned to sit properly. Hearing praise, Sandy is alarmed and wonders if she did something wrong. Killian continues praising, saying it's fortunate she learned how to sit before age 20. Then, he sarcastically suggests she learned to walk properly before age 30. Sandy quickly retorts that she walks both fast and far. Killian scoffs and asks if she's sure. Sandy is stumped by the question and keeps reminding herself inwardly she's not Sandy. She repeatedly emphasizes, in her mind, that she must remember her current identity. She is Miss Adeline now. Sandy grips her teacup. She keeps warning herself to take only a small sip of tea, then put it down. A few days ago, she drank an entire bowl of tea, and everyone was incredibly shocked. But she just couldn't resist because the tea smelled so good. The maids were so frightened their faces turned pale, as if something terrible would happen if she asked for more tea. It's the same with eating cookies. Last time she was tempted by the delicate cookies and couldn't stop, until she finished the last piece. The maid saw this and screamed endlessly. Only then did she come to her senses. Having no choice, she could only pretend to faint as usual to cover up her impropriety. Today she swallows and swears to herself not to make the same mistake again. But the cookies before her are too tempting, prettier than any before. She secretly observes Killian. Seeing him turn to look outside, she feels lucky. She silently tells herself it's okay, then reaches out to take a cookie. Unexpectedly, just as she touches the plate, her eyes meet Killian's directly. After being discovered, she pulls back her hand, so nervous her palms sweat, looking at the cookie in her hand very hesitantly. Killian sees through her intention and softly tells her to go ahead and eat. Only then does she open her mouth and take a small bite of the cookie. And at this moment, Killian just stares straight at her. Sandy is incredibly nervous, constantly reminding herself the more nervous she is, the more openly she must act. Suddenly, she remembers something and asks Killian quietly if he wants some. After speaking, she realizes the plate seems too far from him. Killian can't reach it at all. She stands up, picks up the plate of cookies, and walks to Killian's side. She follows the old rules: walking must make no sound, and the plate must be placed to the master's right. Killian watches her actions in confusion. She used to play neurotic games, and now she's obsessed with playing Maid? He can't help muttering that this isn't like her usual self at all. Hearing this, Sandy feels like the sky is falling. Only 3 words remain in her mind. I messed up. She wants to find a crack in the ground to crawl into, to disappear from here immediately. The more she thinks about it, the more regretful she feels. Seeing Killian standing beside her, she blames him for coming so close. But the next moment she sees him eating a cookie. She's instantly smitten again. She screams inside. Even eating, he's so handsome. She lifts the remaining cookies and places them before Killian. With starry eyes, she asks if he wants another one. On the other side, people are discussing. They thought Sandy's father was done for, but turns out he's still alive. Heard he quit the quarry job and stays home all day without going out. What wind is blowing today? Someone sees what's on his cart and wonders if those are statues. Also heard he stole premium marble. Who knows what for? Father holds the statue and says softly that Adeline is a kind child. He murmurs to the statue, believing his daughter must have gone to heaven, then turns to another part of the statue and guiltily tells his wife he's sorry. When mentioning Sandy, his voice chokes even more. He hates that he couldn't keep his wife and daughter. He blames himself for being useless, letting his wife and daughter leave with nothing. Back home, he guiltily tells Sandy he's sorry. In this house full of memories of his wife and daughter, he can't go on alone. Then he leaves alone. In her dreams, Sandy seems to hear Father's voice and calls softly for him. She calls out that she's here, asking Father not to leave her, but Father doesn't turn back. Her voice fills with fear and helplessness. The next second, Sandy wakes up abruptly, her forehead covered in cold sweat. She's still softly calling for Father. Only one thought fills her mind. She must find Father immediately. Nothing can happen to him. The train jolts forward. Sandy's heart is full of anxiety. If she has to live as Adeline from now on, she should tell Father everything. Even if Miss returns and everything goes back, Father might have to endure losing his daughter again. But she still wants to see Father first. Even just seeing him from afar would satisfy her. Arriving home, Sandy sees the door tightly locked. Her heart sinks. She remembers always advising Father to lock the door against thieves. Father laughed that there was nothing valuable at home. Back then, Father joked that only his beautiful daughter was worth anyone's attention. Now the doorway is empty. Even the family's mule and cart are nowhere to be seen. Sandy panics inside, telling herself over and over that Father will be fine. She hurriedly asks the neighbors. She habitually calls him Father, but quickly corrects herself to Mr. Matty Wiley. The neighbor says Matty Wiley stopped working at the quarry long ago. Sandy instantly panics. She presses for the reason. The neighbor can't say clearly, only mentions his mind hasn't been right since his daughter died. the neighbor looks at her, curiously, saying she looks like a young lady from a wealthy family. Sandy hurriedly retreats. She walks aimlessly, constantly wondering where father went. Not knowing how long she's walked, she suddenly sees two graves. Statues of herself and her mother stand before them. Sandy's legs give out. She collapses to the ground. She cries out desperately for father. On the other side, in Parliament, two factions are arguing endlessly. The atmosphere is tense. Marquess Wesley can't help complaining that he really doesn't understand how Duke Winfred can let Killian run wild. But Killian responds politely that although they clash on official matters, he's always respected the Marquess. Hearing this, Marquess Wesley only feels a headache. Henry breathes a sigh of relief. Every time Killian clashes with the old legislators, only he as the assistant is anxious on the side. But Killian feels a politician's duty is to stand up for voters, otherwise it's dereliction of duty. Of course, he also emphasizes that clashes must remain rational and graceful. After the meeting ends, Killian walks back. On the road, he suddenly sees Sandy's figure. He tells his assistant to go back first. The assistant is confused, not understanding why he's stopping here. Killian quietly walks forward. As if sensing something, Sandy suddenly turns and sees Killian. The two look at each other for a moment. Sandy is somewhat confused. How is he here? Before she can speak, Sandy's stomach growls with hunger. Sandy's face instantly turns red, both embarrassed and awkward. She feels it's too humiliating. She tells her stomach with a red face not to make noise anymore. Killian can't hold back and is amused by this scene, laughing out loud. Sandy feels utterly ashamed and turns to escape. But just as she turns, Killian stops her. He teases with a smile. Where is this hungry young lady going? Although he's curious where she went and what she did, they should solve the hunger problem first. At the restaurant, Sandy still feels embarrassed and apologizes to Killian for letting him see her in such an undignified state. But Killian says compared to her previous odd behavior, this is actually cute. He passes over the cut steak and tells her to eat first. Sandy looks at the food before her, her heart stirring. She figures it out. Crying only makes her dejected. Better to eat something first to recover strength, then bravely search for father afterward. Seeing Sandy's strength restored, Killian immediately questions where she went today. Sandy lies that she just went for a walk. As soon as she speaks, Killian sees through it on the spot. From Claremont Estate to the Parliament building is not suitable for a walk at all. She doesn't even draft or lies. He presses whether she took the train again. Killian says although he doesn't know who she took the train to see. Before marriage, she needs to cut off outside relationships, and he emphasizes he will too. But Sandy looks completely confused, not understanding what to cut off. Killian adds that he won't interfere with her romantic history now, but after marriage it's different. Hearing the word romance, Sandy stands up in disbelief. Noticing the surrounding discussions, she sits back down. She did take the train, but it's absolutely not what he thinks. She's not a lady who has a fiancé but is fickle and lacking standards. Seeing she won't say, Killian asks if she doesn't want to explain why she took the train alone. Sandy opens her mouth but the words stick in her throat. Seeing this, Killian stops pressing and tells her to continue eating, saying she doesn't seem full yet. Hearing this, Sandy obediently picks up her utensils and continues eating. Killian watches this scene and thinks to himself she's so carefree, eating so well. He finds it unbelievable. He never thought he'd have special feelings for Adeline. He can't help thinking she's a little cute. Even just a little bit surprises him. Getting in the carriage to return to Claremont Estate, Killian apologizes that his family carriage has returned, so he can only send her in a public carriage. Sandy quickly says it's already very comfortable. Premium public carriage fare is 4 times that of third-class public carriage. She takes the opportunity to say she has a question for Killian. If someone wants to find someone, what should they do? Killian asks curiously. Find who? Sandy hurriedly covers, saying it's not her looking, but a maid she knows looking for her missing father. Killian asks for the maid's father's name. Sandy is immediately stumped. She can't very well say it's her own father. She can only lie that she doesn't know the name. Without a name, is there no way? Killian states frankly that if it's a disappearance, they should find the police. That's the most direct way. Sandy hurriedly explains it's not a disappearance. She heard he left on his own, not missing. Killian asks back if it's abandoning family and running away from home. Sandy immediately refutes that it's not like that, urgently defending. Although she doesn't know the details, she heard he's a good father and would never abandon his family. Killian looks at Sandy in surprise, not expecting her to care about such trivial matters. Sandy thinks Killian is displeased and quickly apologizes, but Killian waves his hand, saying she has nothing to apologize for. Killian still suggests that even if it's not running away, the maid should go to the police station to report it first. Sandy quickly asks if the police will really help. Killian affirms that's their job. If he knew the name, he could also go to the police station to help. Sandy quickly thanks him, grateful for Killian's kindness. Just arriving home, Count Claremont sternly demands what Sandy is doing and why she went out without notice. Even with a fiancé, she needs to inform the family. Killian steps forward to apologize, saying he should have notified in advance. It was his oversight. The Count presses whether they were together all day. Killian simply confirms yes. Hearing this, the Count can only criticize him for being too rash, emphasizing that, although they're engaged, they're not married yet and can't do this. Killian apologizes to the Count again, promising this will never happen again. Seeing this, The Count follows his words to ease the atmosphere. Several maids immediately understand and come forward to pull Sandy back. Sandy quickly thanks him and says see you next time. This touches Killian somewhat. Killian thinks she's much more than a little cute. That final goodbye was quite cute. The next day, Sandy gathers courage to ask the Count for some books to read. As soon as she speaks, she's interrupted. The Count mocks Sandy, asking if she's really asking him for books now. Sandy admits she wants to read some books, but the Count scoffs that Sandy really has a talent for being amusing. The Countess even says she'll call the primary physician. Sandy hurriedly explains she's not joking, but no one believes her. The Count interrupts, telling her to stop talking nonsense. The tailor for winter dresses is coming. She should go play princess. The Countess agrees mockingly, saying Adeline wanting to read would make their father cry tears of joy if he knew. Sandy feels very angry. She was once mocked for overstepping her place for wanting to read as a quarry worker's daughter. But Adeline is clearly a noble, yet wanting to read is also mocked like this. The Claremont household is truly a strange family, without any warmth. Even a half-sister is family. Sandy thinks Adeline must be very lonely. No one in this house likes her, only naked contempt. She silently walks to the window, pulls open the curtains, and lets the sunlight in, then picks up tools and starts cleaning the room. Her movement's serious. She wants to calm her emotions through being busy. Looking at the refreshed room, Sandy takes a deep breath and starts organizing what comes next. 1. Find father. 2. Exercise. 3. Repay the $8 she owes Killian for the carriage. Thinking of this, Sandy feels conflicted. Should she also repay the dinner expenses together? Inside Winfred Manor, Megan proves unable to handle the task of cleaning Killian's room. The head maid apologizes to Killian, promising to find someone else. Killian shows no displeasure at all, responding with a smile that this will do. He can't help but reflect that by comparison, Sandy Wiley truly is an exceptional maid. With rare free time, Killian decides to visit his grandfather for a chat. He walks out with a peaceful and cheerful mood, when suddenly he passes his father's portrait. He stops, silently reciting the name Edwin Winfred, his father who died young at 34. Killian's gaze shifts to the other side of the hallway, noticing that inconspicuous little door. The adventure he once experienced through this secret door might have been the beginning of everything. In his memory, his young self shouted to his father, saying there was a strange world behind that door. Father told Killian then that it wasn't a strange world, that the current Chamberlain was created by the Chamberlain behind the door. Father solemnly instructed Killian to remember that people from another world created his good fortune. It was those people who allowed him to become the Killian Winfred he is today. That little door is like a solid boundary, separating two different worlds. Father taught him to understand propriety and integrity, never forget compassion. Only then could he become an excellent politician. Those words became Father's final message. At the speech venue, Father and Mother were attacked and tragically died. Father was preparing to deliver an important speech about establishing a public education system. Opposition called him a hypocrite, but he felt hypocrisy was acceptable. Those in power exploiting. The weak was far more despicable. Killian refuses to live so disgracefully, so he walks the path his father once walked. Perhaps Father back then was just like him, holding ideals in his heart. Killian arrives outside Grandfather's room, asking the attendant if Grandfather is inside. The servant informs Killian that a guest just entered Grandfather's room, making it inconvenient to disturb him now. Upon hearing this, Killian changes his mind and thinks of spending the weekend afternoon with his lovely fiancée. On the other side, Sandy hesitantly speaks to the tailor. She asks if she can request something of him. The tailor quickly agrees, though inwardly sighs that he can forget about going home early today. Tailor Geoffrey Claw considers himself Rayburton's foremost tailor, but he also has two extremely difficult clients, Adeline Claremont and Killian. Adeline frequently makes ridiculous requests, plunging him into chaotic confusion, while Killian is sensitive about every detail, the culprit behind his nervousness. The tailor understands that these torments and trials built 80% of his reputation, but he still worries about her whimsical demands. Sandy tells the tailor she hopes to make a simple, practical outfit. Claw is somewhat surprised at this. Seeing this, Sandy adds that the dress length shouldn't be too long, must allow easy movement, and needs an apron and cap. The tailor incredulously asks if Sandy is joking. Seeing this, Sandy quickly corrects herself, saying not an ordinary apron. She imitates Adeline's manner, saying she wants a princess-style apron. The tailor feels helpless. Sure enough, the earlier reasonableness was just an act. Though a princess-style apron is troublesome, he still agrees. A maid brings over a note at this moment, informing Sandy it was sent from the Winfred family. In the note, Killian invites Adeline to stroll through Swan Park on the weekend afternoon. Sandy instantly becomes happy. Killian is surprised when he sees Sandy. She actually arrived 10 minutes early. Sandy explains that the weather is so lovely today, so she came out early to enjoy the sunshine. Killian looks at Sandy, his heartbeat inexplicably quickening. He never expected she would become so much more beautiful. Sandy's eyes are crystal clear. Even if someone said she became a different person, he would believe it. Killian extends an invitation to Sandy, indicating they should stroll through Swan Park together. Sandy's face involuntarily flushes. She softly agrees. She instinctively holds the parasol for Killian, but is refused. Killian has Sandy use the parasol herself. Sandy quickly explains her hand lacked strength, so it tilted, yet can help inwardly criticizing this deeply ingrained maid instinct. Killian jokes that without even the strength to hold an umbrella, she'll be lying in a coffin before long. Sandy is furious at these words. Even her admired young master occasionally irritates her. The two stroll in the sunlight. The warm sunshine makes them feel especially cheerful. Sandy recalls the times back home when she would often lie on haystacks reading. Suddenly, she notices Killian's gaze. She suddenly grows anxious, asking if she did something wrong again. Killian answers no. This makes Sandy more confused. She presses for the reason. Killian suddenly praises her tenderly, saying she's exceptionally beautiful today. Sandy doesn't understand, asking what this sudden behavior is about. Killian smiles, asking what exactly is wrong with him. Sandy is displeased. He just mocked her about lying in a coffin soon. Killian argues these are two different things. Killian looks intrigued. He merely complimented her beauty, yet her reaction is so strong. Sandy is puzzled. What woman in the world dislikes compliments? Killian nods, saying that person is her. At these words, Sandy freezes, surprised it's actually her. Killian says Adeline dismisses all compliments anyway. Sandy hastily covers, saying that's because those came from others. Killian seizes on this. Is he not different from others? Sandy stubbornly says he's her fiancé, naturally different. As the words leave her mouth, Sandy realizes Adeline always disliked her fiancé. This is bad. Time to play her trump card. The next second, Sandy clutches her head, claiming dizziness. Killian sees through it instantly, joking that this fainting trick is quite nostalgic. Sandy hastily denies it, saying she's truly dizzy. Not exposing her further, he helps her sit down. After sitting, Sandy quickly reiterates that she truly doesn't like him. He should know this. Killian shakes his head, saying he doesn't know. He used to think she disliked him, but now it doesn't seem so. Sandy frantically denies it, saying she doesn't like him even a tiny bit. Killian teases with a smile that the stronger the denial, the more it seems like confirmation. Sandy is both angry and anxious. This is all because he keeps talking nonsense. Killian doesn't understand. Is liking one's fiancé so improper? Hearing marriage, Sandy instantly freezes. Killian continues, saying they're getting married anyway. Compared to dislike, affection is obviously better. Only then does Sandy remember the two are already planning to marry next summer. She panics. Does this mean Maid Sandy will marry the young master then? Sandy agonizes inwardly. Must she keep deceiving the young master forever? She really wants to tell the young master she is Sandy, but looking at him, she lacks the courage to speak. Killian sees her dejected expression, not understanding why she's like this. He merely said liking one's marriage partner is better. Her reaction is so extreme. Sandy suddenly remembers something important. She takes something out and hands it to Killian, saying she forgot to give it. She explains this is the 8 coins from riding the public carriage last time. She didn't give it promptly that day. Killian raises an eyebrow, asking if she's repaying him the carriage fare. Sandy nods, saying it's late, no need for change. Then she asks if she needs to pay him for the dinner last time. At this, Killian pauses. Sandy reminds him he treated her to dinner last time. Killian is embarrassed. He never expected she would calculate even the dinner cost. Sandy secretly feels relieved. Sure enough, they had a relationship where everything was calculated clearly before. She presses for the specific amount. Killian says no need to repay it. She can treat him to dinner today instead. Sandy freezes, somewhat disbelieving. Seeing this, Killian teases whether she doesn't want to have dinner with him. She hastily denies it. She only brought 100 coins and doesn't know if it's enough. She hesitantly asks if he has anything he wants to eat. Killian says last time he took her to his favorite place. Today they'll choose according to her preference. Sandy can only silently pray inwardly. Arriving at the small shop, Killian asks curiously if this is what she likes. Sandy hastily says it's not what she likes. It's what the maid recommended. Killian doesn't ask further. At this moment, the shopkeeper suddenly recognizes Killian, excitedly asking if he's the councilman. Killian nods in acknowledgement, saying he is indeed. Shopkeeper Kevin Pike is both surprised and delighted, saying it's such an honor for the councilman to come. Killian responds politely. The shopkeeper curiously asks who the lady accompanying him is. Killian introduces her candidly, saying this is his fiancée, Adeline Claremont. The shopkeeper praises repeatedly, then asks if he came to this humble establishment to observe public sentiment. Sandy smiles and denies it, saying they simply came here for dinner. She orders tomato chicken chowder, spicy roasted pork, and green bean salad. These dishes are all delicious. She hopes Killian will like them. Killian suddenly asks who this maid she's so close with really is. To have a good relationship with her, the person's character must be quite excellent. Hearing the young master praise her, Sandy can't help feeling joy rising in her heart. Seeing Killian eating happily, she feels secretly relieved that the dishes she chose suit Killian's taste. Killian notices her gaze, puzzled why she's looking at him like this. Sandy blurts out instinctively that it's because he's exceptionally handsome today too. Seeing he only chuckles lightly, she asks why Killian isn't surprised. Killian answers frankly that making a fuss over something obvious is laughable. He even asks Sandy back, "Isn't this the logic?" Sandy stares dazed, thinking to herself he truly is a God-given young master. Suddenly she realizes she's in Adeline's body. She hastily adds this absolutely doesn't mean she likes him. After finishing the meal, Sandy feels helpless, asking how long Killian plans to keep laughing. Suddenly her gaze falls on a small stall nearby. Sandy unconsciously stares at the candy on the stall in a daze. Seeing this, Killian speaks at the right moment, letting her pick what she likes. Sandy quickly waves her hands in refusal. She used to browse this stall and was unconsciously drawn to it just now. Killian smiles, smiles, saying thanks to her he enjoyed the meal. This is a thank you gift. He thought he couldn't resist beautiful women. Now he has no defense against cuteness either. Sandy hesitates for a moment, finally choosing chocolate gummies in a small voice. Killian turns to ask the vendor the price. The vendor immediately answers 12 coins. Hearing this, Sandy immediately says this is outrageous. She used to be a regular customer here. The vendor pretends to sigh, saying Sandy doesn't understand current prices. Sandy immediately retorts that she knows very well. Helplessly, the vendor changes his tune, saying because she's pretty, he'll lower it to 8 coins. Sandy still thinks it's expensive. The vendor has no choice but to lower it again to 5 coins. This is practically giving it away. Sandy won't accept it. Chocolate gummies aren't this price. Before she finishes speaking, Killian hands the money to the vendor. Then he pulls Sandy away. Sandy anxiously reminds him he didn't take the change. They were ripped off. That box only costs 4 coins. Killian is somewhat surprised. He didn't expect the Count's daughter to know these things. Sandy hastily explains the maid told her. Besides, 5 coins was already a loss, and he gave 10 coins. Killian suddenly calls out Adeline, his tone more serious than before. He says even if the gummies really cost 4 coins, it's not a loss. Sandy is even more confused. Why waste 6 extra coins? If the customer were another maid, the vendor would definitely call out the original price. After hearing this, Killian asks, so what? Sandy says firmly, so this means they were cheated. Killian shakes his head, saying he doesn't think so. She and he are both of noble birth. What they were born with far exceeds these 6 coins. There's no need to fuss over it. Hearing this, Sandy suddenly understands, finally grasping his thinking. She feels ashamed of herself just now. She says she will definitely remember this principle from now on. Sandy can't help but reflect that nobles and maids calculate life in vastly different ways. Duke Winfred is curious why Killian would actively see Adeline. Does he have feelings for her? Killian responds flatly that it's a political marriage anyway. These things don't matter. The Duke nods despondently, saying this marriage was insisted upon to repay a benefactor, but he sincerely hopes this marriage can bring him happiness. Killian comforts the Duke not to worry. At first he found that young lady hard to accept, but recently discovered she's not so bad. The Duke is curious whether Adeline has started to mature. Killian thinks it's not quite maturity, but not bad. Hearing this, the Duke also wants to see Adeline. Why not hold a banquet to celebrate her recovery? Killian nods in agreement. Returning to his room, taking off his coat, he pulls out the candy from his pocket. He recalls Sandy saying these gummies are delicious, enthusiastically sharing them with him. She promised to buy him a gift next time, thanking him for spending a pleasant weekend with her. When saying goodbye, Sandy smiled, saying she hopes to see him again next time. Killian joked about upgrading Adeline from somewhat cute fiancé to cute fiancé, but he quickly changed his words, saying it still depends on her performance. Sandy sees an invitation from Chamberlain. She secretly wonders if she can retrieve her hatbox. It contains letters father sent, her diary, and saved wages. She hid it under her dormitory bed, so she has the maid bring over a coat. She doesn't want to wear the one she has on. The servant quickly apologizes, saying she'll find it immediately. Sandy hastily explains it's not that she doesn't like it. She needs a coat with many pockets. Count Claremont sternly instructs Adeline to keep her mouth shut. He emphasizes Adeline must play the dignified lady well, and not displease the Duke. Sandy looks out the window. She encourages herself inwardly. Time to pull herself together. She can't turn back into Maid Sandy, just because the place is familiar. The banquet table atmosphere is harmonious and pleasant, different from Sandy's past experiences. Sandy feels somewhat at a loss. At Claremont Estate, she often ate alone. Even when occasionally eating together, no one paid attention to her presence. Duke Winfred suddenly asks how she's been lately. Sandy is startled by this sudden conversation. Her body instinctively stiffens. In her panic, she accidentally knocks the fork beside her, making a sound. Count and Countess Claremont are extremely nervous. Their faces instantly darken. Killian and Duke Winfred look completely puzzled. Sandy looks at the fallen fork, nervously at a loss. Sandy stammers a reply, saying she's been doing well, thanking him for his concern. Seeing this, the Duke calls out Adeline with concern. Count Claremont quickly smooths things over, saying with the wedding approaching, Adeline has become much more sensible. People around echo in agreement. The scene makes Sandy increasingly nervous. Sandy panics inwardly, reaching for the wine glass on the table. She gulps down a large mouthful. Only upon tasting does she discover this isn't water but white wine. Killian has been watching Sandy's actions. He can't help teasing that this seemingly delicate lady can actually drink quite well. Sandy feigns composure, thanking him for the compliment. Killian smiles, saying she's welcome, adding that even if she's only good at one thing, he's relieved. Sandy can't help asking Killian if he always enjoys teasing people like this. Killian shakes his head in denial. How could that be possible? Sandy doesn't understand then why he treats her this way. Killian answers with a smile, saying because teasing her is very interesting. He jokes they should toast to helping her discover new strengths. Someone else remarks that gathering here again reminds him of the last banquet. Miss Adeline's piano performance was quite marvelous and moving. The Countess agrees with a smile. That person then extends an invitation, asking if she could play a piece. The Countess immediately chimes in, saying this is Adeline's honor. These words strike Sandy's heart like a bolt from the blue. She murmurs the word piano repeatedly, full of helplessness. The Duke also agrees, saying it's rare to hear her perform. It would feel very fortunate. it. Sandy freezes in place, motionless. Killian notices something is wrong, puzzled why she suddenly became modest. She's not the type of woman to miss such a chance to show off. Sandy urgently looks to Killian for help, her eyes full of pleading, begging him to help her. Killian instantly understands. Could it be that because of the previous accident she even forgot the piano? Sandy is still forced to sit at the piano, trembling all over with nervousness. Killian rescues her in time, saying her wrist was injured in the accident. Playing would be difficult. Today he will play on behalf of his fiancée for everyone. As soon as he finishes speaking, people present applaud. Killian speaks softly, telling her to compensate him properly later. His appearance fee is quite expensive. Melodious piano music begins. Sandy is full of amazement, her heart pounding uncontrollably. Though she doesn't know which musician's piece this is, she will love this piece for a lifetime. When the piece ends, everyone applauds enthusiastically. Sandy also claps and cheers without concealment. The banquet ends. Everyone remarks what a pleasant evening it was. Chamberlain's banquets truly live up to their reputation. Sandy secretly feels dejected. She couldn't find her treasures and must return simply because her coat was taken away as soon as she arrived. At this moment, Claremont tells the Duke he has something to say about wedding preparations. The Duke nods in agreement, suggesting they discuss it in detail in his study. Sandy sincerely reflects that since knowing the Count, this is the first time she's so grateful to him. She hurries, slipping into the servants' passage, finally returning to the room. She breathes a sigh of relief, secretly grateful she's temporarily safe. Sandy feels fortunate inwardly. Everyone is busy today. The servants' passage happens to be empty. She sees her treasure box is still there. Her anxious heart finally settles. Sandy quickly stuffs the things from the treasure box into her pockets. Killian is puzzled. How come he doesn't see Adeline? The Countess echoes, saying she was clearly here just now. How did she suddenly disappear? Killian is embarrassed. The Countess seems to have no intention of looking for her at all. Though he anticipated her relationship with her family wasn't good, he didn't expect it to be this indifferent. Killian wonders if this pointless diligence and curiosity are after effects of the accident. When she came before, she would only lie on the sofa. Just now she clapped happily like a child. The face that usually yells and loses her temper smiled brilliantly, suddenly beautiful enough to be intoxicating. He can't help but wonder if he's been too abstinent lately. Suddenly a figure darts before his eyes. Killian asks Sandy, puzzled why she came out from the servants' passage. Sandy's heart sinks. This is bad. Why did the young master have to discover her? Killian presses why she came out from that place. Sandy hastily makes an excuse that she got lost. Killian looks skeptical. She actually found such a remote place. She continues explaining that while touring she saw a door and tried opening it. It was complex inside, so she got lost. While speaking, the coins in Sandy's pocket suddenly make a sound. Sandy instinctively covers her pocket. Seeing this scene, Killian suspects Sandy might have kleptomania. Sandy hastily denies it. Absolutely not. Killian tells her to confess truthfully. It would be troublesome if Alistair's next Prime Minister's wife is a thief. Sandy anxiously emphasizes again she is absolutely not a thief. Then she suddenly asks Killian if he will become the kingdom's Prime Minister in the future. Killian nods in acknowledgement. Sandy presses for the specific time. Killian says proudly, "Very soon. It's as good as decided. What he wants to do, he will definitely accomplish." Sandy quickly offers congratulations, saying that's wonderful. Killian doesn't appreciate it, telling her to congratulate him when that day comes. He hopes she doesn't have kleptomania. Sandy quickly promises she absolutely won't do bad things. Her body makes sounds again. The atmosphere is somewhat awkward. Sandy makes an excuse that her family is still waiting. She wants to leave first. Killian stops her, saying they still have unfinished business. Sandy looks bewildered. Killian reminds her, the carriage fare was calculated clearly. She just got rescued and wants to renege. Hearing this, she recalls the piano just now, asking Killian how much he needs. Killian asks Sandy back what she thinks it's worth. Sandy says frankly she doesn't know. Seeing this, Killian deliberately asks if she thinks it was unbearable and doesn't want to pay. Sandy hastily denies it. The performance was so wonderful it can't be measured by price. She lets Killian name the price. She'll listen to him. Hearing this, Killian ponders carefully, saying he's quite valuable, not easily dismissed with coins. Then he says to repay with this. Before Sandy can react, Killian gradually moves closer to Sandy. The atmosphere instantly heats up. He kisses Sandy. This makes her instantly freeze, her mind going blank. Sandy exclaims inwardly. She only read wholesome novels before, so this is what kissing feels like. She even marvels that the young master is so good at kissing too. After nightfall, Adeline suddenly appears, loudly calling for the maid, scolding her for still being able to sleep. Sandy is awakened, responding groggily. Sandy sees Adeline, very surprised. She thought Adeline would never come find her again. Adeline retorts that she will never leave until she gets her body back. Sandy asks why she didn't come before. She's been waiting for her. Adeline says haughtily she comes when she wants. Adeline also tells her to get up quickly. How dare she sit on her bed? Sandy urgently asks if she found a way to get their bodies back. Adeline indicates not yet. She doesn't understand why she came this time. Adeline impatiently says she comes when she wants. Adeline changes the subject, asking Sandy if she's been protecting her body well. Sandy thinks of the daytime kiss. Her face instantly flushes. She stammers a response saying yes. Adeline senses something wrong, pressing Sandy on what exactly she did with her body. She demands to know if she did something shameful. Sandy hastily denies it, saying no. Adeline is certain she's lying, saying she won't won't forgive her, Sandy explains in a panic. It's just something small happened with the young master Killian. Hearing this, she presses whether it's her fiancé, Killian Winfred. Sandy nods saying yes. Adeline is shocked, asking if Killian tied up her body and gagged her. Sandy quickly denies it. She merely kissed the young master Killian. Hearing this, Adeline is shocked, speechless. She collapses to the floor, frantically calling for the maid, telling her to give her a massage. Sandy helplessly explains she's transparent. Adeline doesn't care. Even if it's just for show, she must massage. Sandy can't help asking if she never tried kissing before. Adeline angrily retorts she is a lady. Sandy is puzzled. They're engaged. Kissing is normal. Adeline snaps back not to compare her to those sinister people in society. Adeline crooks her finger, asking Sandy how it felt. Sandy doesn't catch on. Adeline says bluntly, didn't she say they kissed? Is he good at it? Sandy reflects and says though it's her first time, it felt good. Adeline says sourly Killian must have practiced through frequent fooling around. Adeline asks guiltily why Sandy is looking at her like that. Sandy says Adeline's reaction is different from what she imagined, asking if she dislikes Killian. Adeline admits it. Sandy continues pressing, then why isn't she furious? Adeline is stumped, angrily calling Sandy an insolent maid, forbidding her from asking questions freely. Sandy boldly guesses she doesn't actually dislike her fiancé. Adeline is embarrassed and angry, telling her to shut up. Then she instructs Sandy to treat this body well before she returns. Can't let anyone discover. With those words, Adeline directly disappears. Sandy smiles bitterly. Adeline didn't teach her how to be like the real her. Someone suddenly points in the distance, asking Killian if that's Miss Adeline. He's very puzzled, wondering where Adeline is going alone. Killian can't help but worry. Does she deliberately keep doing these strange things? The next second he stands to leave. Someone teases if he's going to chase his fiancée. What about the meeting? Killian doesn't care, only telling everyone to relay his opposition. He's never agreed with meetings Dominic presides over. In life one should be decisive. Yet Killian violates his beliefs because of a woman. Even more unexpectedly, that person is Adeline. Killian feels he's gone mad, actually following his fiancée, but he really doesn't know what to do. Adeline's behavior makes him feel both suspicious and inexplicably intrigued. Following Adeline to an unfamiliar place, Killian can't help looking around. Sandy looks around the house entrance, finding nothing. Though she held no hope, she still wanted to see traces of father's return. She refuses to give up and continues forward. Killian quietly follows her like this, arriving at the cemetery to look carefully. Still no sign father had been here. Sandy breaks down, unable to help, questioning heaven why she must endure these hardships. She never wanted to steal someone else's body and life. If there were a way, she would even be willing to die as her true self, to go to heaven and reunite with mother. Turning her head, she sees Killian. Sandy is shocked and alarmed. Stammering, she calls out, Sir Winfred! After a long silence. Killian can't help asking how she can remain silent the whole time. Sandy speaks to apologize. Killian says he didn't ask her to apologize. She explains quietly she knows he finds it strange. Killian says bluntly, it is indeed very strange. Sandy hesitates repeatedly, still deciding to reveal the secret. Killian perks up, curious what remarkable secret she will tell. Sandy goes all in, confessing she is actually the maid Adeline. Killian can't believe it after hearing. He thinks to himself he should investigate the carriage accident after effects. Even considers exile. He suddenly calls out Adeline. Sandy reflexively responds yes, her heart full of anxiety. Killian says he is a unicorn. Sandy is speechless, demanding why Killian always treats her this way. Killian also asks why she treats him this way. She emphasizes she's not joking. Killian, not to be outdone, says he isn't either. Killian laughs helplessly, saying he believes her. Sandy feels bitter inside. Sure enough, no one believes such an absurd thing. She can only apologize again, falsely claiming her joke went too far. Killian breathes a sigh of relief, glad her head wasn't actually damaged by the carriage. He presses Sandy why she secretly ran to such a remote place. Sandy stammers, saying this is a secret. Killian is displeased, demanding if she's toying with him. Sandy quickly denies it. She would never dare. Killian's tone intensifies, warning her not to test him further. His patience is running thin. Forced with no choice, Sandy can only say she came to see someone she wanted to see. Killian's heart sours, questioning whether the person she's secretly meeting in a cemetery is a man. Sandy is surprised how he knew. The person she wants to see is her father. Indeed, a man. After hearing this, Killian burns with rage, cursing her audacity. Before she claimed to be a lady, now she does such things. Sandy is completely confused, not understanding what he means. Killian asks what she thinks. Realizing something, Sandy hastily explains this is absolutely not something immoral. Killian nods, saying he can let bygones be bygones. But this kind of thing can only be tolerated until today. Sandy asks, puzzled. He clearly said last time he'd tolerate it until before the wedding. Killian says he changed his mind. Tolerating until today is already the limit. Sandy feels completely helpless, though she wants to clear up the misunderstanding and protect the young lady's reputation. She has no way. Her body feels weak. She wants to replenish some sugar. Fortunately, she brought gummies. She invites Killian to sit and eat together. Killian sees the gummies, his face darkening, asking if it's the box from that day. Sandy honestly nods in acknowledgement, not noticing the fury in Killian's eyes. Killian is furious inwardly. She actually brought the gift he gave to meet another man. Killian is secretly angry. She says she doesn't like him, yet brings his gift to wait for someone else. Sandy suddenly wonders if he follows followed her all the way from Riberton. Killian feigns composure, blaming Sandy's suspicious movements. Sandy doesn't understand why he didn't ask her first. Killian felt that if he asked her, she would definitely lie. Sandy thinks for a moment and finds this reasonable. Suddenly, Sandy calls out to Killian. He turns asking what else she wants. Sandy gathers courage. If she doesn't see other people, can he not see ballet dancers and actresses? Killian raises an eyebrow, asking if she's putting on airs as a fiancé. Sandy retorts they got engaged a year ago, but Killian believes neither of them accepted this engagement then. Sandy immediately shows determination to learn to be a fiancé. She also asks him to be faithful. This is the only thing Sandy can do for Adeline. Killian goes along with her words, saying he's willing to try. He'll properly fulfill both their responsibilities. At Claremont Estate, a maid comes forward with a letter. Sandy didn't dare open these letters before, thinking they didn't belong to her, but Adeline demanded she play the role flawlessly. Opening the letter, it's from Killian. He looks forward to Sandy fulfilling her promise, being his true fiancé. Seeing Alistair Women's Society on the letter, she asks the maid, puzzled. The maid explains it's a volunteer activity gathering organized by councilmen's wives. Sandy suddenly understands, curiously asking if she's a member. The maid teases with a smile that she refused every invitation to this gathering before. Eventually, the sir gave up too. She feels indignant for Sandy, blaming Killian for sending an invitation knowing she's frail. Sandy explains she promised Killian she would fulfill her duties as a fiancé. The maid worries, what if she faints? Sandy reassures her she'll act within her limits. Yet she's somewhat surprised inwardly. Adeline seems difficult to serve, but they're quite concerned. At this moment, the maid brings another letter, informing her it's from Chamberley Manor. Another maid asks curiously. Sandy opens the letter. It's an invitation to a ballet at the Royal Theatre. As soon as the two enter, people in the theatre are talking, saying the art world's titan Killian has arrived. The performance will surely go smoothly. Others remark that gaining Killian's applause is tremendous success for performers. Killian sees Sandy with a smile, asking if she has something happy. Sandy can't help praising how beautiful the theater is. Killian teases that those who don't know would think it's her first time here. Sandy retorts indignantly, saying this is too condescending. As she speaks, she plops down. Killian's hand hangs in midair, hesitating to speak. A gentleman nearby gently pulls out a seat for his lady. Only then does she remember. A lady must wait for the gentleman to pull out her chair before sitting elegantly. She immediately stands up. She asks Killian to help pull out the chair. Killian helplessly points out she already sat down. Sandy awkwardly claims her legs hurt, so she was resting temporarily. Seeing this, Killian tells her to continue resting. Sandy immediately says she's fine. Killian can't help teasing that her recovery is astonishingly beast-like. She can't help complaining that noble ladies aren't even free to sit in chairs. Sandy picks up the opera glasses to look at the stage. Killian can't suppress a laugh, reminding her she's holding them backwards. Adeline is extremely embarrassed, stubbornly insisting she knows. Her gaze turns to the stage. Sandy shows an astonished expression. She quickly becomes mesmerized, her heart pounding. Killian thinks to himself, she's like a child visiting a fancy venue for the first time. He recalls sitting with her last year. Adeline kept complaining about her fear of heights being unbearable, urgently wanting to know when the ballet would end. When the opera nearly ended, he almost wanted to jump from the box. Killian asks curiously if this performance is very interesting. Sandy quickly agrees. All of this is so beautiful. She now understands why Killian likes ballet dancers. Killian suddenly calls out Adeline. Sandy immediately responds, her eyes still fixed on the stage. Killian calls out with full name Adeline Claremont. Adeline looks completely puzzled, not knowing what happened. Killian is displeased. Finally got her to shift her attention. He asks if she truly wants to fulfill her fiancé duties. Sandy nods, saying she's decided to participate in the volunteer activities. Killian presses why she hasn't replied to the Women's Society letter yet. Sandy doesn't understand letter etiquette. She awkwardly explains she wants to inform the person in charge in person. Killian suggests letting her inform Edith in person, who is present. Sandy breaks down. She has absolutely no idea who Edith is. Sandy realizes awkwardly that everyone seems to be watching them. Killian shakes his head, saying they're probably watching him since the performance is almost over. He suddenly asks mischievously if she wants to see something interesting. Everyone sees him stand up and follows suit. Killian sits back down. Although hesitant, everyone slowly sits back down. Killian applauds slowly. The crowd around them also starts clapping along. Sandy is utterly confused about why everyone follows his actions. Killian says with a barbed tone that there are always people in this world who lack opinions yet pretend to be superior. As he finishes speaking, everyone instantly falls silent, but Sandy continues clapping alone. Seeing this, Killian teases her, asking if she's very satisfied with the performance. Sandy nods, saying that although she doesn't understand ballet, she finds the performance captivating. Killian dismissively says it's just so-so. Sandy says he's well-informed, so his judgment must be wise, but she doesn't need to follow him in clapping or stopping. Everyone should have their own feelings. Seeing him staring at her, Sandy wonders if she said something wrong again. Killian repeatedly says she didn't say anything wrong. As the crowd disperses, someone calls out to Killian. The person says Tagliatini must be heartbroken not to receive a standing ovation from Lord Winfrid. Killian coldly says this level of performance shouldn't expect a standing ovation. Sir Wesley can't help but complain about his ruthlessness. He then praises Miss Claremont, saying she looks especially radiant today. fiancé. Sandy politely responds that he's very handsome too. Then she turns to his companion and compliments her beauty as well. Sir Wesley quickly agrees, saying Edith is indeed a true beauty. Only then does Sandy realize that Edith from the Women's Society is his fiancé. At this moment, Killian mentions the Alistair Women's Society charity work at the orphanage, and Adeline will be going too. Edith smiles falsely and asks if her health has recovered. Sandy nods with a smile, saying she's looking forward to it. This puzzles Edith, as it's completely different from her attitude when invited to the tea party before. Back then, Claremont said coolly that Edith had a beautiful heart, but she didn't, so there was no need to go. She remains composed on the surface, saying she's happy Claremont can participate. Everyone says goodbye. Sir Wesley says he'll inspect the orphanage the next day and they'll see each other then. Sandy sighs that Miss Blason is a very warm person. Killian is confused. Didn't she say before that she was fake and pretentious? Sandy feels a bit embarrassed and stammers that she must have been mistaken. She only now realizes that Adeline used to dislike Miss Blason. Killian advises her that if she wants to cause trouble at the orphanage, she might as well do what she's supposed to do. But Sandy is confused. Wasn't he the one who invited her to go? Killian sweats nervously. He only wanted to tease her and didn't expect she'd actually go. Sandy firmly states she will definitely participate. She wants to fulfill her duty as a fiancé, and she always gives her all to what she promises. Killian asks when she started being so persistent. Sandy answers it's always been this way. Giving her all no matter when or where is Sandy Wiley's strength, and she'll never betray that principle. She tells him not to worry. She'll do well as the Prime Minister's fiancé. Hearing this, Killian becomes even more uneasy. He suggests that if she can't handle it, there's still time to fix things. But Sandy is full of confidence. Killian sighs helplessly. The atheist wants to ask God for help now. Sandy marvels that Geoffrey Claw can make such beautiful clothes. It's simply delightful, with delicate pleats and soft fabric. Even the color is pristine white, like a princess's apron. She loves it. Geoffrey is speechless. The dress next to it is the one that's princess-like. Sandy says she'll wear this apron to the orphanage tomorrow. Geoffrey shakes his head helplessly. His winter fashion debut is at an orphanage. At the orphanage, everyone is shocked to see her, saying Miss Claremont actually came, and they didn't expect her to be dressed as a maid. Miss Blason comes forward to greet her, saying she didn't expect her to actually come. Others gather around, saying her apron is impressive. Sandy thanks them politely. Miss Blason asks worriedly if the work will be too hard. Sandy quickly promises not to cause any trouble. In the carriage, Sir Wesley makes a bet that Miss Claremont must have already fainted. Others join in betting that she'll cry and go home, and some even bet she won't show up at all. Sir Wesley invites Killian to place a bet too. He impatiently tells him to shut up. The nun warmly greets the council members, saying the ladies came early to help. The nun specifically mentions that Lord Winfred's fiancé came as well. She praises Sandy, saying her arrival surprised everyone. Killian can't help but worry that Adeline ended up doing something extraordinary, but the nun suddenly praises her, saying she did an amazing job and astonished everyone. Someone can't help but mutter that a noble lady is so good at cleaning. Others agree, saying even their own maids can't compare. Someone else sighs that compared to this, their previous charity work doesn't count. Hearing this, Killian is completely confused, not understanding what's going on. Looking at the places Sandy cleaned, everything is sparkling. Killian stands frozen in shock. She's really cleaning, not just pretending. Killian can hardly believe it. If she were a maid, she'd be hired on the spot. After Sandy passed away, he never imagined that the savior for cleaning rooms would be Adeline. Noticing someone behind her, Sandy turns around. She greets Killian. Killian's heart pounds uncontrollably. This is definitely not his type. He's actually attracted to Adeline in a maid outfit covered in dust. He must have been celibate for too long. At this moment, someone enviously praises Killian as the luckiest man in the kingdom, having such a good fiancé. They also say Adeline is beautiful and kind, and everyone misunderstood her before. Someone laughs in agreement, saying they almost thought they met a cleaning fairy today. Sandy accidentally makes eye contact with Killian. She quickly turns her head away in panic. She feels relieved that she didn't smile when looking at him. She constantly reminds herself that imitating Adeline means not showing her feelings. Seeing this, Killian feels dissatisfied. Sandy smiles like an angel to others but ignores him. After the accident, he thought she'd become a lady. Now that the after effects are gone, is she going back to how she was before? But thinking about it, if that were true, how could she persist with charity work? At this moment, Sandy stares at the utensils on the table, hesitating to reach for them. Seeing this, Killian whispers a reminder, not that one. Seeing her pick the wrong one again, Killian suddenly realizes she wants to get revenge on him here, but he honestly tells her it's not that one either. Finally, Sandy confirms it's that fork. Having finally picked the right fork, she struggles with choosing the knife. Killian patiently reminds her it's the one on the right. Sandy doesn't hear clearly. Killian emphasizes again, it's on the right. She tries to pick one up and asks uncertainly if it's this one. Finally, Killian can't take it anymore and directly takes the knife and puts it in her hand. People around see this scene and praise Killian for being gentle and attentive, telling their own fiancés to learn from him and not just focus on eating. Others sigh that handsome people are naturally elegant in their manner. Seeing this, the other three gentlemen give them warning looks, telling them to stop making others look bad. He secretly feels troubled. Sandy is making him lose face, so he has to pretend to be captivated by his fiancée's beauty. Killian whispers another reminder not to put her elbow on the table when using the knife, but he secretly thinks to himself, Adeline, let's see about this. He plans how to get back at her next time. At night, Sandy anxiously calls for Adeline, wanting her to come out. She's already trying her best to imitate her, but it's too difficult. She hopes she can help her. Noble etiquette is so complex and hard to learn. She looked for etiquette books in the estate before, but couldn't find any. Even if she could buy etiquette books, she can't learn the other skills. Thinking about dancing, piano, foreign languages, Sandy feels utterly hopeless. She can't hold it in anymore and starts crying. The lady always appears unexpectedly, but when she specifically waits for her, the lady doesn't show up. Sandy looks at the invitation to the Crown Prince's birthday banquet. Killian expects her to perform well as his fiancé. She can't help crying and complaining that Killian is really too mean. He seems like a perfect gentleman, but is actually vindictive and petty. On the day of the Crown Prince's birthday banquet, Assistant Henry looks at Killian, curious why he's in such a good mood. Killian says with a smile that the weather tonight is especially pleasant. Henry wonders to himself, it's gloomy and rainy tonight, how is it pleasant? He holds an umbrella and escorts Killian to the carriage. Lord Winfred notices something and asks if there's good news. But Killian won't say, only repeating that the weather tonight is very pleasant. Grandfather looks at him, full of confusion, not understanding what he's up to. Killian thinks to himself, Adeline is really interesting, just wait and see. He secretly makes up his mind that this time he'll definitely win against her. Duke Winfred suddenly appears and calls out to Adeline in delight. Sandy turns around sharply before she can speak. Count Claremont rushes forward to greet them first. At this moment, Killian's greeting comes from behind her. Sandy hurriedly suppresses her heartbeat, reminding herself to think of that petty young master's letter. She stammers a greeting to Lord Winfred. At the ball, Killian makes an inviting gesture indicating they should dance. Sandy clutches her skirt, heart pounding, silently telling herself to stay calm. Suddenly realizing they'll dance, she feels the sky is falling and can't help pleading not to make her dance. Killian raises an eyebrow and asks what's wrong. Sandy says she's not in the mood to dance. Killian reminds her it's her duty. She argues the after effects from the accident haven't recovered. Killian doesn't believe it, saying her attitude toward him doesn't seem unwell. He also advises her to forget the after effects and return to being the dazzling butterfly of high society. Sandy hastily protests that he saw her dance steps at the last ball, and he was the one who made her faint. She doesn't want to dance anymore. Killian doesn't care, saying this time is different from last time. He even jokes that if she faints again, it might be quite interesting. Helplessly, Sandy can only tell herself that crying won't help. She must dance. She recalls the dance steps from last time and does her best, as long as she doesn't embarrass herself too much. Seeing this, Killian quickly asks why it's like this again. Didn't the after effects disappear? Sandy feels very aggrieved, saying she already told him. Did he even listen seriously? Killian is completely puzzled, saying no matter what, she shouldn't forget dance steps. Isn't that a bodily instinct, he thought, as her memory recovered? She'd at least know some. He even found her clumsy appearance cute. He didn't expect it to be a nightmare again. Killian calls her Adeline in confusion. Sandy sneers and asks if he wants her to pretend to faint again. Although she could laugh while pretending to faint that day, today she really can't. Killian reminds her everyone is watching. Sandy feels wronged, saying he knew this and still made her lose face. She firmly says she doesn't want to faint again. This needs to stop here. She suggests he find another lady to dance a proper dance with. Seeing her turn and leave, Killian panics and calls out loudly to her. Sandy cries and apologizes to Adeline. Dancing is really beyond her capabilities. She can't help complaining that Master Killian is really mean. She only discovered this today. At this moment, a noble lady points at Sandy, saying she's back. The young couple must have had a fight. A lady laughs in agreement, saying that's how young people are. They can even fight over dancing. But soon someone wonders why Miss Claremont danced like that. Using her body not recovering as an excuse is too strange. Everyone nods in agreement that it's indeed very strange. Sandy returns and sees the scene before her. Can't help but mock herself for feeling guilty just now. But Killian doesn't care at all and dances so happily with someone else. He's really two-faced. She once thought his kindness was genuine and was so excited she couldn't sleep every day. At this moment, a servant asks if she wants a drink. Without hesitation, Sandy picks up the glass and gulps it down. She puts down the empty glass and asks the servant for another one. The servant is stunned for a moment, then quickly reacts and nods, saying all right. Sandy hides alone in a corner, not wanting to be found. Can't let people say Miss Claremont is a drunkard. Sandy is drinking when she suddenly feels someone's gaze. She looks up in confusion and discovers it's the next ruler of the Kingdom of Alistair, Crown Prince Leopold Fraser. Killian looks around from a distance. Not seeing Sandy, he mutters to himself. He was reflecting on making her lose face again and felt a bit guilty, but he didn't expect she'd be chatting with another man so soon. Killian feels angry and jealous, thinking to himself, which fool is this? When he sees clearly it's the Crown Prince, he instantly restrains his contempt. The Crown Prince is the only person he respects. He surpasses him in knowledge and appearance, only slightly inferior in status. But the more he thinks about it, the angrier he gets, not understanding why his fiancée is with the Crown Prince. Option 1. Pretend not to see. The Crown Prince won't do anything inappropriate to his fiancée. This is the most proper approach. Option 2. Greet them with a smile. After all, he has a relationship with the Crown Prince. Though pretentious, it's acceptable. Option 3. Look stern. This is what he most wants to do, but it lacks grace and is the worst choice. After weighing the options, he still chooses the pretentious but safe middle option, naturally walking up to them and greeting them. He then turns to greet the Crown Prince, who sees him and politely responds. Killian casually asks what they're talking about. The Crown Prince answers indifferently that they're just chatting about how crowded it is and how social gatherings are tiresome. Hearing this, Killian sneers. He thinks to himself that the social queen is really going to great lengths to cater to the Crown Prince who dislikes socializing. The Crown Prince doesn't stay long and prepares to leave after a brief farewell. The two bow respectfully. The next instant, Killian's expression changes, and he sarcastically says, "Sandy has quite the ambition." Sandy is baffled and asks what he means. Killian mocks her, saying she tried every way to break off the engagement for this. He becomes increasingly harsh, mocking Sandy for wanting to be crown princess and looking down on the title of duchess. Sandy is angry and anxious. She's the one who drank, so how is he the one acting drunk? She can't help questioning how he can be so undignified. Killian mocks her, asking if having such ambitions is dignified. Sandy reiterates that she doesn't have any. He refuses to believe her. He admits the crown prince is good, but insists that aside from status, he's inferior in everything else. Sandy can't help retorting, pointing out that he's also a duke's son. Using status to belittle the crown prince is inappropriate. These words shock Killian. He didn't expect Sandy to say something so cutting with such an innocent face. He tries to stay composed and argues that a duke and king can't be compared. Sandy says dismissively that to her there's no difference. Killian is so choked up with anger that he blurts out that she's just a count's daughter. Sandy thinks helplessly to herself that she's not. Killian suddenly comes to his senses, cursing himself for having such a pointless argument. He then states firmly that he will absolutely not cancel the engagement. Listening to his words, Sandy suddenly understands Adeline. Killian as a young master is a reasonable and pleasant person, but as a fiancé he's completely unqualified. But the fact that she likes handsome faces hasn't changed. Although the crown prince is dazzling, in terms of looks, Killian is still superior. Killian notices Sandy's flushed cheeks and asks in confusion why her face is still red when the crown prince has left. He then mocks Sandy's acting skills, saying people who don't know would think she really wants to be a duchess. Sandy is flustered and embarrassed. She's drunk from champagne and begs him to stop teasing her. She can't help asking Killian why he speaks to her sometimes casually and sometimes respectfully. Killian doesn't avoid the question, frankly saying he does all this to make her fall for him. This makes Sandy's face even redder. In her panic, she accidentally twists her ankle. Killian takes the opportunity to pin her against the wall. He teases, saying it seems she's really fallen for him. Sandy hurriedly turns her face away, repeatedly denying it. But Killian doesn't let her go, asking, "Really?" Without waiting for her answer, he kisses her. Sandy's mind goes blank from the kiss. At Claremont Estate, Sandy is somewhat breaking down. There's no way she can get away with this. After the banquet ended, she found etiquette and dance textbooks to study desperately, but can't understand them at all. Suddenly, Adeline's angry roar comes, calling her crazy for trying to imitate her with these textbooks. Sandy is scared out of her wits, patting her chest and complaining that Adeline always appears suddenly. Adeline is not polite at all, asking back if she should tiptoe when appearing. Sandy feels a bit down, saying she didn't steal. Adeline says indifferently that she doesn't care about that. With books alone, it's absolutely impossible. Looking at Adeline lying down, so the lady's basic posture is lying down, but if she does nothing, she'll be discovered more easily. Adeline accuses her. Didn't she tell her to do well? Sandy says she tried her best and begs her to teach her, but Adeline flatly refuses, saying the only thing she hates more than studying is teaching people, let alone teaching a maid. Sandy panics. If she won't teach her, who else can she learn from? Adeline rolls her eyes and reminds her there's a walking noble textbook right beside her. Sandy looks blank, completely not understanding who she means. Adeline doesn't bother beating around the bush, and directly points out it's Killian Winfred. Adeline admits that, although Killian is annoying, he's top tier in the kingdom in certain areas. Sandy can hardly believe it. Does she really have to learn from the young master? She can't do it, but Adeline bluntly tells her that learning from Killian is much more practical than reading useless books. Sandy still worries about what if he finds out when she asks for help. Adeline says impatiently to find a way not to be discovered. Sandy has no idea what to do. Adeline is annoyed at being asked, "Does she have to teach even this?" Sandy is helpless. No matter how much she pretends, facing the young master is really difficult for her. Adeline emphasizes again that since Sandy is living in her body, she has an obligation to maintain her dignity and taste. Sandy is still struggling. Adeline impatiently tells Sandy to sit in the chair. After Sandy sits down, Adeline says it's too far. Sandy feels wronged. She was the one who told her to sit. Adeline explains she meant to bring the chair over. Sandy can't help complaining. Wouldn't it be better to just tell her to sit in the chair next to her? After sitting down, she says there's something she wants to ask Adeline. Adeline wonders what it is. Sandy gathers her courage and asks, "Don't the maids dislike her?" Without thinking, Adeline says confidently that the maids certainly don't dislike her. Sandy asks quietly if it's true. Adeline senses something and immediately asks if she's insulting her. She hastily denies it, saying there were some things she did thinking the maids wouldn't like them. But now it seems that's not the case. Adeline says she gets along very well with the maids. She just doesn't understand her. Once she does, she'll find she's very kind. Sandy thinks silently to herself that even though Adeline yells and shouts, she doesn't dislike her that much. She says from now on she'll try to get along well with the maids. Adeline nods nods approvingly. Sandy speaks up, wanting to say something. Adeline asks impatiently what else there is. Sandy carefully asks Adeline about her father, but Adeline says she doesn't even know who her father is. Sandy quickly says her father is named Matty Wiley and used to be a quarry worker. After hearing this, Adeline still has no impression. Sandy feels disappointed, thinking that an extraordinary existence like Adeline would know everything. Adeline asks if she lived with her father. Sandy nods. She then asks about her mother. Sandy's tone drops, saying she passed away when she was young. Hearing this, she's a bit surprised, saying her situation is the same. She continues asking if Sandy's father is also a good father. Sandy immediately shows a proud expression. Adeline also says softly that her father is also a good father. Soon she collects herself and reminds Sandy not to overthink, to work hard to become the perfect Adeline. Sandy agrees in a low voice, but she still has concerns and can't help bringing up the young master again. Before she finishes speaking, Adeline disappears. Sandy mutters that the two of them are really alike, only saying what they want to say. Why do these two people dislike each other so much? The next day, Killian comes to visit. He sighs that Adeline, who used to be afraid of the cold, actually came out to greet guests herself. Sandy instinctively says she should naturally greet him when he's coming. She thinks of Adeline's questioning, "What is she doing?" Sandy immediately corrects herself, saying even if she dislikes it, she has to come out to greet him. Seeing this, Killian teases that she changes her expression too quickly. Those who don't know might think there are two souls. Seeing her endure her dislike to come greet him, he's almost moved to tears. At afternoon tea, Sandy blurts out again that the cake is really delicious. She invites Killian to try some, then hurriedly remembers she's not a maid now. Killian politely declines, telling her to eat more herself. Sandy sighs inwardly that Killian is more elegant and refined than others, even doing the same actions, whether it's his gaze, expression, or posture. But thinking of having to treat the young master as a teacher, she becomes conflicted again and awkwardly asks about his recent situation. Killian directly calls her out, telling her if she needs something from him, just say it directly. Don't beat around the bush. Sandy remembers her father's words that when asking for help, you should let the other person eat well first. She reaches out and quietly pushes the cake in front of Killian. Killian laughs, wondering what she's going to do. Although he doesn't particularly want to eat, he still accepts Sandy's kind gesture. Sandy gathers her courage and asks, "They should be dancing together often from now on, right?" Killian says that although he's not happy about it, that's indeed the case. Sandy follows up saying she feels the same way, so they should solve problems together. Killian questions what kind of sophistry this is. Sandy quickly explains that it's not sophistry. It's a suggestion for everyone's benefit. Killian says to get straight to the point. Sandy takes a deep breath and says she's willing to give him the opportunity to teach her. Killian can't believe it, asking if Sandy is giving him the opportunity to be her tutor. Sandy nods with a smile. Exactly. Before she finishes speaking, Killian decisively refuses. He speaks bluntly without beating around the bush, emphasizing he's extremely unwilling to be her teacher. Sandy gets anxious and tries to convince Killian with fiancé obligations. Killian frowns and retorts that this is unreasonable. She's not convinced. They clearly agreed to be real fiancés. Killian asks in confusion what being engaged has to do with being a teacher. Sandy asks back, "Isn't being engaged about mutual understanding and respect, maintaining each other's reputation?" Killian asks indifferently, "So what?" Sandy says tearfully that she endured her weakness to do charity work at the orphanage for him, deliberately emphasizing how hard it was. Killian's face darkens. It's been so long and only now she says it was hard. Sandy presses on, saying he should also maintain her reputation more. If her reputation is damaged, it will affect Winfred too. She asks Killian back, if others mock his wife as worthless, can he not care? Killian is at a loss for words and tells her not to let him hear gossip before the wedding. Sandy immediately follows up, saying this is exactly why she's making the suggestion. Killian asks in confusion, "Can't the Claremont family afford a tutor?" Sandy exclaims worriedly, "What if word gets out? She'll become the foolish fiancé who has to relearn everything before marriage. If this rumor affects Killian becoming prime minister, she'll feel guilty for life." Killian sweats nervously. When did this woman become so eloquent? He says indifferently that even if she really became stupid, it wouldn't affect his path to becoming prime minister. He has both noble bearing and intelligence, unmatched by anyone. Sandy shows no mercy, questioning whether the public would support a politician who marries a foolish lady. Then she tearfully gives an example, saying her father once said birds of a feather flock together, so they should work hard together. Killian bristles and interrupts her, saying he hasn't agreed yet, don't say we. He complains inwardly that she rambles too much. No wonder opposing politicians are driven crazy by him. Being this eloquent, she has the qualifications to become Winfred's first fox. Killian looks at her seriously and asks if she's confident. Sandy immediately nods, saying she'll definitely work hard. Killian points out that hard work is necessary. He emphasizes that if he becomes her teacher, she needs to obey unconditionally and do everything perfectly. Sandy agrees immediately. Seeing her so determined, Killian stands up. He warns Sandy seriously that he definitely won't show mercy. Sandy doesn't hesitate at all and smiles, asking him to teach her well. She remembers it was her mother who first supported her learning to read and write. Her father looked troubled, saying neither of them could read and they had no money to send her to school. Mother said there was a retired teacher in the neighboring village who taught poor children to read for free. Father was shocked she wanted to send their young child to the neighboring village. Hearing this, Mother promised to accompany her until she learned the way. Father worried about Mother's health being affected. Mother said once a week was fine. Mother gently asked Sandy if she would study hard. Young Sandy nodded vigorously. From then on, every Wednesday, Sandy traveled 12 kilometers round trip to the neighboring village to study. Mother accompanied her for a month, then it was just her. This journey made her a strong child who could run and jump. She gained far more than just knowledge. She became the only literate girl in the quarry village. Others mocked them for overestimating themselves. But Mother was as pleased as if she owned the whole world. Sandy liked seeing Mother happy and would read to her after each lesson. Mother told her life was more than just a small village, to live each day better. She also hoped she'd be better today than yesterday, and even better tomorrow than today. But on Wednesday, a week later, Mother left forever, and learning made her world bigger and gave her dreams. With this dream, she went to the capital and became a maid at Chamberlain Manor. She thought to herself that Mother's decision was so wise. Mother certainly didn't expect she could live the life of Miss Adeline Claremont, much less that she'd become the student of the young master of Lord Winfred's family. Sandy greets Killian with a smile. Killian welcomes her to Chamberlain Manor. She's thrilled inside. Now her new teacher is Killian Winfred. Seeing the materials on the table, Sandy asks in confusion what these are. Killian explains that only by understanding her level can he develop an appropriate teaching plan. Sandy realizes they're for testing. Killian nods lightly. Killian informs Adeline that she only has 1 hour to complete the test. Before she can react, Killian coldly says, "Begin." Before Sandy can react, Killian directly presses the timer start button. She encourages herself. She's Mrs. Austen's most satisfactory student. She can definitely do this. 10 minutes later, Sandy is dazed. She can't help doubting if this is really Alistair language. Killian reminds her. 20 minutes have passed. 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 50 minutes. Killian's face darkens and he can't help questioning what she's doing. Sandy weakly answers that she's taking the test. Killian flips through her answer sheet. He just feels a headache and can't help questioning how she doesn't even know these things. Sandy responds aggrievedly that not knowing is not knowing. There's really no way. Killian is angry and anxious, calling loudly for a servant to bring strong tea. Drinking it in one gulp, Killian directly judges knowledge level inadequate. As he finishes speaking, he hands Sandy a sheet of drawing paper. Pointing at the vase, he tells Sandy to draw it. Sandy stares at the vase for a long time and finally only draws a simple stick figure. Killian looks at the drawing paper, his face turns pale. Then he takes out sheet music and asks Sandy to try singing the first measure. Sandy looks troubled and says quietly she doesn't know the tune. Killian frowns and reminds her to sing while looking at the sheet music. For a long time, no sound is heard. Killian angrily questions how she can't even read sheet music. Sandy apologizes guiltily. This time, he calls for another cup of strong tea with lots of sugar added. Once again drinking it all in one gulp. Killian judges again, artistic level inadequate. Then he asks Sandy to walk from this end to that end, using her most ladylike steps. Killian's face darkens, unable to believe she walks like a fat pigeon waddling in the park. Then he asks Sandy to curtsy, telling her to imagine him as His Majesty the King. Sandy curtsies as instructed. Then Killian asks her to curtsy again, this time imagining him as other nobles. Finally, Killian asks her to curtsy, this time imagining him as household servants. Sandy thinks, since they're servants, she probably doesn't need to lift her dress hem. Killian is angry and helpless, sarcastically saying it's really touching that she treats everyone the same. This time it's even worse. He not only calls for strong tea, but also adds whiskey. Sandy asks carefully if this is also inadequate. Killian says irritably, she should be glad there's one thing she understands. Sandy defends herself quietly, saying she was once praised by her teacher as the most promising student, though that was 10 years ago. Killian sighs and says it's the teacher's fault. That praise made her lose 10 years of learning. The more he thinks about it, the more his head hurts. He even has thoughts of breaking off the engagement. If this ambitious lady becomes crown princess, at least the crown prince will have to go through a trial too. But seeing Sandy's innocent appearance, he finds her too cute and can't bring himself to do it. Killian calculates that this situation absolutely can't be left to a tutor. Her previous words might not have been nonsense after all. Thinking of this, Killian calls Sandy over. Sandy walks over hesitantly and sits down beside him. She smiles and encourages Killian, patting her chest saying they can definitely do it. Killian immediately objects, telling her not to insult him with we. But Sandy insists on we, saying that although it will be hard because of the amnesia, they can work hard together. Killian insists she not use we. Sandy says something shocking, saying as long as he teaches well, she'll forgive him. Killian is stunned, completely not understanding what he needs to be forgiven for. Sandy reminds him that at the Crown Prince's birthday banquet, he made her lose face and feel hurt, and he hasn't apologized. But she's decided to forgive him now. Killian is both angry and amused, frankly saying teaching her is as absurd as betraying one's country and then asking for forgiveness. Sandy excitedly retorts that he's going too far, it's not to that extent. Killian can't tell if he's speechless or charmed by her cuteness, but he's not angry. He clears his throat and decides to change lessons from once a week to twice a week. Sandy asks in confusion, will they have lessons twice a week from now on? Killian nods, saying once on Wednesday and once on Saturday. Sandy worries and asks if she'll be wasting his precious time since he's so busy. Killian says helplessly that with one lesson a week, Sandy will absolutely not become a perfect lady before the wedding. He seriously tells her to listen well, his tone full of determination. Even for his own reputation, he must mold her into a perfect lady. On volunteer activity day, Edith exclaims and asks Sandy if the volunteer work has exhausted her. Another person chimes in, saying her pale complexion is worrying. Edith reminds her that she's already frail, and worrying too much can easily make her fall ill. Sandy gently shakes her head and says it's fine. After all, this gathering is the only place she can catch her breath lately. Killian hands over the assignment, his tone stern as he tells her to speak up now if she lacks confidence. Sandy grits her teeth inwardly. More than reducing the workload, she wants to prove she can do it. To prove that Sandy Wiley is not the fool others say she is. These days she buries herself in assignments, without even time to go out for walks. Fortunately, she can squeeze out time for volunteer activities. She's secretly grateful this counts as her only rest. Edith apologizes with guilt all over her face, saying she's slow and actually let Sandy change all the bedding by herself. Sandy smiles and says these are all things she enjoys doing. Edith says she does indeed look happy. Sandy explains that seeing snow-white sheets spread without wrinkles improves her mood. Killian likes it too, and she's practiced. Edith suddenly suggests the four of them have lunch together on Sunday, as there's a new opera showing. Sandy wonders who the four people are. Edith smiles and explains it's herself and Elio, plus her and Lord Winfred, asking for her opinion. She smiles and agrees, saying as long as Lord Winfred is available, she'd be honored. At Winfred Manor, Killian breathes heavily and tells Adeline not to think about hiding. Sandy complains this position is both embarrassing and tiring, but Killian is firm. He won't call it quits until he's satisfied. Sandy can't help asking if he doesn't feel tired. The maids can't help whispering that it's still broad daylight. Although they're engaged, they're not married yet after all. Another person sighs that she thought the two disliked each other before, never expecting them to be this passionate. Suddenly someone speaks up asking what they're doing. One person hurriedly signals the other to keep it down. The maids see clearly that the person is Mrs. Addison and hastily curtsy in fright. Mrs. Addison's face darkens as she scolds them for eavesdropping on their master's private life. The maids quickly bow their heads and apologize. Mrs. Addison sternly orders the maids to go downstairs immediately. Suddenly Sandy's resisting voice comes from inside the room, saying that movement won't work. Killian's voice follows, saying she has no right to refuse him. Mrs. Addison can't help grumbling inwardly, thinking the two are being too careless. Sandy pleads with a crying voice, saying this is already her limit, and she really can't hold on anymore. Killian is helpless. He's always believed in the power of education to change people. He reminds Sandy not to move, and corrects her to straighten her back and square her shoulders. Sandy can't help asking how long she has to stand like this. Killian says coldly, until she's familiar with the basic waltz position. Sandy doubts somewhat. Isn't this basic enough already? How many eyes does he have watching her? Killian jokes that Basic would feel insulted hearing that. He never expected his educational beliefs to be shaken by his fiancée. Seeing Sandy's posture slacken, he reminds her about her chin again. He asks Sandy if she's tired. Sandy quickly nods, but he only coldly spits out two words, "No way," telling her to keep going. Sandy complains inwardly that he's really too much, but Killian can't help feeling sorry for his feet that have been trampled beyond recognition. Sandy looks away guiltily. Killian reminds her again not to lower her chin and questions why she still hasn't memorized the dance steps today. Sandy quickly says she has memorized them. Killian raises an eyebrow and asks back, then how did his feet end up like this? Sandy is somewhat embarrassed. She did memorize them but forgot when dancing. Killian can't help calling her out, saying translated, that means she didn't remember at all. But Sandy worries, what if she's too tired tomorrow to keep the appointment? But Killian teases that she still has the mind to worry about that. Even if she doesn't come, he'll enjoy the time alone just fine. He sternly demands she memorize the steps so thoroughly that she can dance them even if startled awake from sleep. Sandy agrees with a bitter smile. Killian tells her to answer louder and say it again. Sandy says loudly that she'll know them backwards and forwards, telling him not to worry. Killian nods with satisfaction, saying wouldn't it have been better like this earlier, and tells her to rest for 10 minutes. Killian looks at Sandy and wonders inwardly, no matter how much memory loss, the body should still have muscle memory. These words instantly panic Sandy. Has he noticed something? Unexpectedly, Killian just complains that her brain doesn't work well. Hearing this, Sandy is both shocked and angry. Killian says seriously that he's worried about what to do if their child is as dim-witted as her. Sandy gets even angrier hearing this and says there's no need to worry about that. She hasn't decided whether to have children with him. Killian is amused by her sulking appearance. He can't help laughing out loud. As soon as 10 minutes are up, Killian stops smiling and tells Sandy to return to her position and continue practicing. Watching Sandy look all puffy and angry yet obediently compliant, Killian thinks inwardly that she's truly adorable. In the carriage, Maid Hyde worries and advises Sandy that continuing like this will make her ill. After returning from Chamberlain Manor yesterday, she read until late at night before sleeping. Sandy soothes her, saying it's fine, she can rest all day today. Heidi sighs again that if Lord Winfred had been like this earlier, Miss probably would have fallen in love with him long ago. Sandy follows the conversation and confirms, so she really didn't dislike him from the very beginning. Heidi speaks frankly, no lady would dislike Lord Winfred from the start. Miss also had favorable feelings toward him, if not for what happened at their first meeting. Sandy is about to ask when they've already arrived at their destination. She can't help pondering inwardly what exactly happened at their first meeting. meeting. Sandy proactively greets Wesley, smiling and saying what beautiful weather today is. Wesley smiles and responds that compared to the weather, she herself is more radiant. Just as he finishes speaking, he sees Edith has also just arrived. Sandy asks Killian with anticipation if she's improved quite a bit, but the answer she gets is not at all. Sandy doesn't believe it and asks again, really not at all? Killian lists in detail. Stride, too large, posture stiff, laughing pointlessly, talking like a child. Does he need to be more specific? Sandy sulks inwardly, planning to step on him with her heel next time they practice the waltz. At the dining table, Sandy is careful throughout, afraid of making more mistakes. Killian lightly kicks her shoe, signaling she's wrong. Sandy is startled and cries out. Edith quickly asks with concern what's wrong. Sandy hurriedly waves her hand saying nothing. Killian deliberately teases, saying she was moved by private praise. Edith can't help praising how romantic he is and complains Elio isn't as good as Killian. Elio gets somewhat irritated and tells him to shut up. Killian quietly reminds Sandy to watch her hands. He never taught her such barbaric dining methods. Sandy gasps and quickly corrects herself. Killian reminds her again to switch hands. Sandy quickly complies, fumbling to adjust her utensils. Edith curiously asks if they've been meeting often lately and if they've fallen in love. Sandy quickly explains they're just studying. Wesley is especially surprised hearing this. Sandy hurriedly covers up, saying actually she's recently become obsessed with reading, so she and Killian appreciate and discuss various books together. Killian chimes in from the side, saying more or less. Wesley still can't believe it, actually studying and discussing with Killian. Sandy nods reluctantly, saying he's a good teacher. Her lips feel somewhat stiff saying these insincere words. Elio teases that even the cold-hearted Killian shows leniency toward his fiancée. Killian's face darkens as he tells him to shut up. Wesley marvels that Miss Claremont is truly remarkable. He and Killian have been friends since childhood, yet he's never thought of studying with him. Sandy curiously asks why. Wesley explains that Killian is naturally intelligent and can't understand the feelings of those who struggle with learning. And he's also an extremely demanding perfectionist. Sandy agrees inwardly. Wesley hit every point. Wesley adds that once Killian starts teaching, he'll definitely go all the way to the bitter end, so it's better not to study with him. The Royal Academy has a tradition of excellent seniors mentoring juniors. There was once a junior who chose Killian Winfred as his mentor. That junior couldn't endure Killian's instruction and was constantly unwell. He ultimately chose to drop out, but Killian disdainfully comments that the junior was just a spoiled fool. Sandy can't help asking Adeline inwardly why she recommended Killian as her teacher, but at least what can comfort her is that Killian isn't harsh only to her. He's equally strict with others. She absolutely cannot let Killian see her as a spoiled fool. In the opera house, Sandy watches the opera she's been longing for, yet can't muster any energy. She hasn't been sleeping well lately. Before long, Sandy grows drowsy. Killian looks at her like this and helplessly complains that she's really outrageous. Despite his verbal criticism, he still gently rests Sandy's head on his shoulder. Making her study to the point of such exhaustion is indeed somewhat too much. Although she learns slowly, she hasn't missed an assignment once. But the next second, Killian is shocked by Sandy snoring and drooling. He instinctively pushes Sandy away, but Sandy wobbles and leans back on his shoulder. Killian looks at Sandy leaning on his shoulder. He wonders inwardly, something must be wrong with him. He can't believe he'd find a woman who falls asleep drooling in the theater adorable. He feels his aesthetic sense must have developed a serious problem. After the opera ends, Sandy apologizes to Killian, promising to wash the handkerchief clean before returning it to him. She appears calm on the surface, but Sandy is already deeply ashamed inside. But Killian refuses, saying seeing the handkerchief would remind him of her drooling. Sandy is both angry and embarrassed, accusing him of not saying such things to a lady. He asks back, does drooling on one's fiancé's shoulder count as ladylike? Feeling awkward, Sandy can only apologize again. Killian teases that it seems she feels ashamed too. Sandy gets exasperated and tells him to stop making fun of her. Killian claims he's just stating facts and not making fun of her. Sandy can't help asking why he won't show gentlemanly tolerance for a lady's mistakes. He states that interesting opportunities are rare, and he's unwilling to miss them for gentlemanly virtue. Sandy declares she'll catch him making mistakes, and will definitely retaliate doubly then. Killian is not afraid at all. If she can catch him, he's ready anytime. He won't make mistakes. Sandy doesn't believe it. Even the most perfect person makes mistakes. But Killian declares he's already surpassed perfection and never makes errors. Shocked by his arrogance, Sandy can't help exclaiming, "Oh my goodness!" The two smile at each other. Sandy asks why Killian is laughing. Killian immediately asks back. Sandy emphasizes she asked first. Killian shakes his head helplessly. She's really stubborn, unable to hold back anymore. The two are amused by this childish behavior and laugh out loud. Sandy gazes at the night sky and softly praises how beautiful the moon is, her eyes full of tenderness. She says she likes the half moon. Killian grows curious and asks Sandy why. Sandy explains the half moon is neither too full nor too empty, just right. Looking at it can improve one's mood. Killian remarks that Sandy has unique taste, as most people prefer the complete full moon or the pitiful crescent moon. But Sandy states that even if others don't agree, she still prefers the half moon. She wants to live like the half moon, neither too full nor too empty. Killian is somewhat moved. He advises Sandy that if she feels tired, she can pause volunteer activities and study etiquette instead. But Sandy refuses, saying although volunteer work is for him, it's also her small joy. Killian is somewhat surprised. She affectedly claims Killian doesn't understand her yet. When he does, he'll discover her kindness. Hearing this, Killian is puzzled and doubts whether she's really Adeline. Sandy panics and stammers that she is Adeline. Killian says softly that she is Adeline, but sometimes he feels she's not like her, afraid of being questioned. Further, Sandy quickly uses the excuse that she can't withstand the late-night chill and suggests going back. Killian says this is more in line with Miss Adeline Claremont's style. Sandy warns herself inwardly, this doesn't belong to her. Just let everything take its natural course. Don't force herself to grasp what doesn't belong to her. In the carriage, Sandy stares out the window, lost in thought. Killian can't help teasing about what this delicate lady is thinking so intently. Sandy turns back and smiles, saying it's a secret. Sandy feels uncomfortable being stared at by Winfred. She can't help asking why he's looking at her like this. Killian says bluntly it's because she's beautiful. Sandy nods in agreement. Miss is indeed beautiful. Suddenly, Killian leans close. Sandy nervously calls out Lord Winfred. The next second, he suddenly leans down and kisses her lips again. As this kiss gradually deepens, Killian's movements become increasingly intimate. He reaches out to grab Sandy's clothing, wanting to go further. Sandy instantly snaps back to her senses and pushes Killian away forcefully. She urgently says, they can't do this. Killian's hand stings from being grabbed. He still wants to move closer, but Sandy turns her head away to avoid him. Killian is somewhat embarrassed. He inwardly feels like a lecher and unhappily questions what Sandy is doing. Sandy appears even more indignant, emphasizing that she's the one who should ask what he's doing. Killian tries to argue they're already engaged and will be married in a few months. Sandy firmly believes they can't cross the line before marriage. Doing this before marriage is wrong and will send people to hell. Killian asks who told her this. Sandy answers without hesitation that it was her father. Killian immediately falls silent. He sighs helplessly, feeling the Count is too cruel. Why give him such a great test? Sandy can't help roaring in anger, accusing Killian of being really too much. Killian immediately retorts that it's Sandy who's too much. She said she'd be a real fiancé and forbade him from seeing other women, yet now she has this attitude. Sandy retorts that the agreement has nothing to do with his rogue behavior. Killian can't believe she's calling him a rogue. He mocks Sandy since she said she'd fulfill her fiancé duties. Why pretend to be conservative now? Sandy doesn't understand. She also acquiesced when he kissed her before, but Killian thinks that's even more cruel. Since she allows kissing, why should the chest area be treated specially? Shouldn't it be included? Sandy gets exasperated and accuses him of speaking indecently. He's no different from a rogue. Killian mocks Sandy, saying she's playing a nun a bit too much. Sandy doesn't agree. She sighs inwardly. Miss Adeline is even embarrassed by kissing, but the young master only thinks of himself. He neither understands Mrs. Hart nor his own, and isn't even willing to try. Sandy emphasizes again that they'll be married in a few months. If he can't even restrain this bit of desire, it's unbecoming of a gentleman. Hearing this, Killian gets even angrier. Why should he listen about such trivial matters? Sandy retorts that what makes a lady ashamed he calls a small matter. Killian can't stand it anymore and tells her to shut up, but Sandy continues complaining that on the surface he's a perfect noble, but inside he's not. Hearing this, Killian is furious and mocks that she dares say anything. Sandy is not intimidated at all and firmly believes what's inside is most important. Killian can't help mocking how beautiful her inside is. Sandy immediately strikes back. However bad, it's more beautiful than someone who treats his fiancé like this. He can't stand it anymore and angrily orders Sandy to stop right there. At this moment, the carriage arrives. Someone reminds them they've reached Claremont Estate. Sandy immediately stands up to take her leave, politely saying she had a pleasant day and thanking Killian for bringing her back. Then she jumps out of the carriage and hurries away. Killian watches her departing figure and snorts coldly. He's angry inwardly. How dare she treat him like a lust-obsessed rogue? Adeline, just you wait. I will definitely have my revenge. Count Claremont angrily curses Killian for being arrogant and audacious, daring to stab his in-laws in the back, not even sparing his own grandfather. The Countess quickly urges her husband to calm down, saying the bill wasn't proposed by Killian. The Count gets even angrier, saying once the minimum wage bill passes, he'll have to pay workers double the salary. He complains that even if Killian didn't propose it, he should have at least warned him in advance. Everyone's courteous only out of respect for his grandfather, yet he's becoming more and more unbridled. The Countess suggests they still have Adeline. Previously, Killian found even meeting once a month bothersome. Now he meets weekly and even brings Adeline to social gatherings. But the Count isn't optimistic, saying Killian is a crazy boy who dares vote against even his grandfather. Killian does it knowing it will cause the Winfred family losses. He doesn't understand propriety at all, but the Countess doesn't think so. He asks his wife back, would someone who challenges his grandfather listen to Adeline? His wife smiles and answers that's exactly what the Count doesn't understand. Sandy arrives at the parlor. The Count says excitedly that finally there's a day she can do something for the family. If she does this well, her father's spirit in heaven will also be gratified. He orders Sandy to persuade Killian and prevent this vicious law that torments the family from passing. Use every means necessary. This must be accomplished. The next day, Sandy is very worried. She really doesn't want to go to Chamberley Manor to see Killian. She's worried Killian hasn't calmed down yet, and the Count has asked her to do such a thing. She's also afraid he'll say he won't be her teacher anymore. Who knew that upon arriving at the manor, she sees Killian. She's very surprised. She greets Killian, surprised inwardly that he came out to greet her today. Killian politely responds to Miss Claremont. Sandy wonders inwardly. Killian Killian couldn't possibly forget what happened that day. Has he repented? Perhaps she misunderstood that day. If Killian apologizes to her, she'll forgive him. At the room, Killian invites her inside. Seeing what's in the room, Sandy asks in shock what this is. Killian answers with a smile that it's a cane. Sandy panics and asks why there's a cane. Killian asks back, she studied with tutors, so she should know what a cane is for. Sandy can't believe it. Is he going to strike a delicate lady with the cane? Killian coldly states that if she wants to be a delicate lady, please leave. During lessons, Sandy is to him merely a student. She questions whether Killian is doing this because he's angry about that incident. Killian immediately denies it. Sandy is certain Killian is angry. It's just that this method is too despicable, but Killian doesn't care. If she's unwilling to accept it, please find someone else. Sandy says this is even more despicable. Killian sneers sarcastically, saying perhaps his inside isn't beautiful enough. Sandy grumbles inwardly that he's petty. Killian stops wasting words and says meaningfully that he hopes she's memorized the irregular verbs. Sandy is both angry and aggrieved, complaining that no one gives such difficult problems. But Killian claims the problems are all within the assigned homework scope. There's nothing wrong with them. Sandy believes he deliberately made the problems difficult. Killian flatly denies this. Seeing Killian pick up the cane, Sandy asks in horror if he's really going to do it. Killian emphasizes that right now he's the teacher and Sandy is the student. Sandy protests that even for teacher and student, this punishment is too excessive. Killian's attitude is firm. If she's unwilling, find someone else. Helplessly, she can only say she understands. She'll take the cane then. Killian teases that she was quite confident just now. Sandy pretends to be magnanimous, saying she'll use her broad mind to tolerate his ill intentions. She thinks inwardly, consider this a heavy blow to her former self who had a crush on Killian. As she finishes thinking, she shows a puzzled expression. It's actually this light? She asks in confusion if that's it. Killian asks back if it's not enough. Sandy quickly shakes her head. Enough, enough. Killian announces a 10-minute break. Sandy admits frankly that she thought he was punishing her for what happened that day, and apologizes for misunderstanding him. But Killian states bluntly that she needn't apologize, because he'll take revenge later. Sandy doesn't understand. Didn't he not really hit her? It actually felt ticklish instead. Killian explains helplessly that no matter how lowly she thinks of him, he won't use a cane to strike a woman for revenge. Sandy is curious then, why prepare the cane? Killian reiterates it's for education. Sandy is curious what method he'll use for revenge then. Killian says meaningfully it will naturally be more cruel. He states that, until Adeline Claremont begs him desperately, he absolutely won't touch her. Sandy is shocked. This is his so-called revenge method? How is this at all like revenge? Killian smiles mysteriously, telling her to wait and see. Sandy reminds him they'll get married sooner or later. Killian's attitude is resolute. Marriage is the same. He deliberately teases her that if she doesn't beg him, even on their wedding night, even if she stands naked before him, he won't blink an eye. But Sandy responds delightedly that that's wonderful. Seeing this, Killian adds he won't kiss her either. She still calmly accepts, muttering inwardly that he's very smart but sometimes incomprehensible. But at least recently she won't have to be conflicted because of Killian's improper thoughts. So she stands up to remind him about class. Killian can't believe it and emphasizes again that he won't spend their wedding night with her. Sandy calmly says she heard. Killian is astonished. Dawn, don't you know what this means? She readily nods, saying she knows and signals to continue studying. Killian is completely petrified. At night, the blurred syllables Maid come from beside Sandy's bed. Sandy groggily makes a humming sound. From the darkness comes Maid crying sounds, very eerie. Sandy's eyes snap open. She screams out loud, complaining about being frightened by Adeline. Adeline feels wronged. She's the one who was almost scared into cardiac arrest. Sandy told her not to pop up suddenly, so she was gentle and quiet. How is nothing right? Sandy is helpless. Just pop out suddenly and directly then. Adeline asks as usual if Sandy has been taking good care of her body. Sandy nods, just as she can see everything is fine. Adeline curiously asks about Killian. Sandy explains he's become her teacher and she's working hard at studying. Adeline exclaims in amazement, "You actually succeeded." She can't help praising Sandy as impressive. Then she gestures for Sandy to come sit down, curious about her name. Sandy answers that she's called Adeline. Adeline is shocked that she shares a name with a maid. Sandy quickly explains it's true, her name is Adeline Wiley, but everyone calls her Sandy, saying Adeline is too extravagant for a maid. Adeline agrees it should indeed be that way. Good thing they're not stupid. Sandy gathers courage to ask if anything happened when Miss and Killian first met. Adeline answers no. She explains that Heidi told her she had good feelings toward him before but then changed. Adeline admits that until their first meeting, she was willing to accept him as her fiancé. She sighs, but oh my goodness. Sandy is startled. What exactly happened? Adeline angrily accuses that man wasn't won over by her charm. Sandy's brain short-circuits hearing this. She never expected it to be this kind of reason. Adeline roars that she made great efforts to attract Killian's attention. She can't understand, she's so beautiful. Yet he looked at her as coldly as at a candlestick or vase. Does he even have eyes? Seeing this, Sandy softly asks what specific effort she made. Adeline says aggrieved that, to highlight her fragility, she tried fainting to gain sympathy. To show she was attentive and thoughtful, she deliberately found fault. To not be seen as a boring lady, she kept talking and joking without rest. She's indignant. She can bewitch men just sitting still, except for Killian. Sandy can't help thinking inwardly that perhaps sitting still would have worked. Adeline then says bitterly, it's not just Killian. Everyone she likes dislikes her. Even those who like her only like her appearance. Sandy softly calls out Miss and comforts her that the maids all like her very much, like Heidi. She knows Adeline acts this way because she wants everyone's affection. There will be someone who understands her loneliness and truly likes her. Even those who don't like her now, if they have a chance to understand her true heart, will surely come to like her. She herself initially thought she was a bad person, but now likes her more and more. Adeline is somewhat moved, but the next second she loudly denies it. No, this absolutely can't be. She roars in anguish. Why does it have to be the maid who stole her body? The more Adeline thinks about it, the more upset she gets, continuously denying, it's absolutely not like this. She asks with red-rimmed eyes why the person who understands her thoughts has to be Sandy. Sandy is left speechless by the question and can only apologize guiltily. Adeline waves her hand irritably. Never mind. She takes out something and shoves it to Sandy, stubbornly saying she picked it up on the road. The next second she disappears. Sandy quickly calls out Miss. That thing glimmers with a faint light. Sandy wonders inwardly why she would pick this up. Did she think this shiny thing was a coin? In the tavern, Elio is puzzled, wondering what a woman who doesn't care about being neglected by her husband is thinking. He speculates. Does she dislike her husband so much she'd rather be neglected? Killian thinks that must be it. He can't think of any other explanation. Elio teases. Has Miss Claremont actually said she dislikes him and would rather be neglected? Killian irritably tells Elio to shut up. Elio raises his eyebrows in surprise. It's actually true. He really wants to announce it widely. Seeing Killian's dark expression, he changes the subject. Considering their years of friendship, doing so would be truly unbearable. He curiously asks if they had a fight. Killian says irritably, enough. Elio advises him as someone who's been there. Learn to bow your head and give in to your fiancé. Victory should be sought in Parliament, competing with those long-winded members. Then he talks about the Workers' Minimum Wage Act. Although the Senate didn't approve initially, it can still pass eventually. He teases that, after all, Lord Killian Winfred himself is giving a speech. Killian becomes serious and asks if he's willing to support him. Elio teases it depends on whether his speech is moving. Their party will send Abbott as their representative. Killian has already won half the battle. Hearing it's Dominic Abbott, Killian immediately says firmly he must win. Elio suddenly wonders, isn't Count Claremont the noble who hates this bill the most? He speculates that's why Killian fought with Miss Claremont. Killian denies it. She didn't mention it at all, and the Claremont family can't change his decision. Public and private must be kept separate. Elio can't help teasing that he's truly heartless, even opposing his grandfather's party. He again advises Killian to bow his head and admit defeat. That's the only way to solve the problem. Killian frowns. Asking him to bow his head is simply a joke. Walking out the door, snowflakes begin falling from the sky. He murmurs in surprise, is this year's first snow? Thoughts stir in his heart. An encounter on a day like this must be fate. His steps pause. When he looks up, he happens to see Adeline. The corners of his mouth unconsciously reveal a smile. He strides quickly in Sandy's direction. He reaches out and gently holds Sandy's arm. Sandy turns around in surprise. Killian speaks gently. Miss, on the occasion of the first snow, we meet like this by chance. Sandy calls out delightedly. Lord Winfred. Killian sighs inwardly that all this is as if destined. Sandy says gratefully to Killian there's no need to specially buy it, afraid of troubling him. But Killian says bluntly to put away her smile before saying such polite words. Sandy thanks him again, saying she'll definitely repay him well. Killian immediately asks how she'll repay him. Sandy suggests treating him to dinner, but Killian says it's only proper for the inviter to pay. She then says she'll give a gift he wants, but Killian says bluntly she doesn't know what he wants. Before she can speak, Killian reminds her not to buy that ugly doll. Sandy is somewhat puzzled. Isn't that doll cute? Killian can't help scoffing at her taste. Sandy insists it's cute and says she'll make good use of it. Killian is curious what she'll use it for. Sandy answers with a smile, cracking walnuts. Killian is somewhat surprised. Sandy nods affirmatively and invites him to the estate next month to crack walnuts for him to eat. He clicks his tongue, sighing inwardly that she's indeed abnormal, yet unbearably adorable. Sandy looks out the window. The snow is falling heavier and heavier. Sandy complains that standing him up in this weather is really inconsiderate of that person. Killian feels somewhat guilty. Originally, he had an appointment with his grandfather to meet a senator, but on impulse, he invited Sandy to dinner. Hearing Killian call her, Sandy becomes alert that she smiled too much and coldly tells him to continue. Seeing this, Killian wonders if she's going to be difficult again. On second thought, he's used to it. Killian asks her if Count Claremont said anything to her. Sandy is stunned for a moment and quickly reacts, asking if it's about that bill. The Count told her to persuade him to stop the bill as it harms the family's interests. Killian wonders why she didn't mention it at all. Sandy says she doesn't think the bill is bad, nor does she think it harms the family. Hearing this, Killian is very surprised. Sandy Sandy admits frankly she doesn't understand law, but knows that as a noble family they should shoulder the responsibilities their reputation entails. Hearing the word reputation, Killian falls into contemplation. Sandy continues, saying she believes protecting the family's reputation means paying workers reasonable compensation according to the bill. Her father once said this. She hopes her brother could do business like him. Killian asks if she really thinks this way. Sandy nods firmly. Killian feels gratified, worthy of being the daughter of the virtuous former count. Sandy asks if that bill has passed. Killian informs her not yet, the vote will be next Tuesday. Killian assures her the bill will definitely pass. Sandy wonders how he's so certain. Killian explains he's the representative speaker for the affirmative side. Sandy doesn't understand the connection. He smiles and says she doesn't understand his position in Parliament. As long as he's determined, there's no bill that can't pass. Sandy echoes that she hopes so and will cheer him on. Killian teases. Just talk? She's so calculating, she should know she needs to pay appropriate compensation. Sandy doesn't understand why she should pay compensation for the bill passing. Killian argues sophistically that she hopes the bill passes, helping her realize her wish. He should naturally receive appropriate compensation. Sandy retorts, it's not just her. But Killian argues sophistically that only she is his fiancée. She doesn't understand the relationship between the two. Killian argues sophistically that without compensation, he has no motivation to fight with all his might. He teases that if his speech lacks passion and the bill doesn't pass, she'll also lose out. Sandy says helplessly that even his nonsense is so persuasive. Killian thanks her frankly. She explains this isn't a compliment, but Killian states that for a politician, this is the best compliment. Helplessly, Sandy can only agree, saying if the bill passes, she'll give him the gift he wants. Killian states he'll firmly remember this promise. Sandy says she keeps her promises, telling him he can rest assured, but inwardly she mutters that she feels like she's taken a big loss. She secretly decides to go home and crack walnuts, naming the doll Killian, on the day of Parliament. Elio teases that Killian is confident. Absent from his party is so nervous he didn't eat lunch. Killian says that's their business. He has a reason he must win. Elio curiously asks if he was promised the next Speaker of the House position. Killian answers with a smile, saying it's something more interesting than that. At this moment, Speaker of the House of Lords Duke Winfred arrives and enters. Killian tells Elio to return to his seat, but Elio is unwilling to leave, saying party affiliation can't break their friendship. Killian teases him to just switch parties while he's at it. He asks Killian helplessly, doesn't he know his grandfather? He's certainly not a pacifist. If he switched parties, he'd probably have to die first. Killian breaks out in a cold sweat and nods in agreement. Just then, His Highness the Crown Prince arrives and enters. Elio can't help complaining. Can't they all just enter together at once? He smiles and says the Crown Prince will have a good show to watch today, telling Killian to go easy. Killian smiles and says he's a pacifist.